Just as the young nurse was debating whether to ask someone to cover her shift, Fu Heng arrived to process his discharge. Discharging already? You still have many tests scheduled for tomorrow. The young nurse felt a mix of anxiety and regret. She knew perfectly well why Fu Heng was leaving. This was the orthopedics department. It wouldn't have been a huge hassle if he stayed. No need to transfer departments, and doctors were always on call. Don't you know whether I'm sick or not? Fu Heng was in a foul mood. Since the charade was over, he didn't hold back. Damn it, many tests. The only thing they hadn't ordered was a gynecological exam. It's probably for the best that you're going home early. The young nurse didn't catch Fu Heng's underlying meaning, her gaze sweeping regretfully over Qin Yuchu, who was standing beside him. Such a pure, adorable girl, probably still a student. What a pity. So young and already fallen prey to a scoundrel. Deceived in both heart and body, and now she'd have to face the onslaught from other women. Sigh. If the other party was relentless and word got out at school, it would be incredibly tough to endure. The discharge process went exceptionally smoothly. Fu Heng paid the bill and left immediately. Outside the hospital, they hailed a cab, and Fu Heng gave Qin Yuchu's address. When they reached the entrance of her residential complex, Qin Yuchu got out and carefully placed the large and small bags packed from the hospital on the ground. She had brought 2 bags when she came. Now, the frugal Qin Yuchu, leaving nothing behind, had packed another 3. I can't carry them up by myself. Qin Yuchu blinked her eyes. Fu Heng looked innocent. Hey, I'm the patient here. Resigned. Fu Heng got out of the car too. Will you sleep in the master bedroom or the guest room? As soon as they stepped inside, before even putting everything down, Qin Yuchu tilted her head and asked. Fu Heng raised an eyebrow, utterly astonished. I tidied up the guest room today too. If you don't want to sleep there, you can take the master bedroom. It's just, I haven't changed the bed sheets yet, and I don't have any spares. Qin Yuchu lowered her head, her cheeks flushed. Fu Heng said nothing, just stared at her. Girl, do you have any idea what I've been through today? I'm emotionally unstable right now, very dangerous. Do you know where my years of self-control, of keeping myself pure, come from? It's from my dedication to my work. That's the conviction that sustains me. And today, just a moment ago, that conviction wavered. I'm dangerous now. I might just do something reckless. And don't think it'll end well for you. I might not even remember you tomorrow. And by then, I'll have nothing left. And you'll have nothing left either. I might not even remember you. Fu Heng said nothing, dropped the bags he was holding, turned, and walked out the door. The headlights of the GT900 flipped up, its engine let out a savage roar, and it sped out of the complex. This girl, who was outside the system's designated parameters. Logically, no matter what he did, the system wouldn't interfere. But what would that make him? And what would that make her? The taillights flickered, and the car disappeared into the night. On a balcony on the 9th floor, a solitary figure stood, watching the vehicle drive away. What are you really afraid of? I can feel what you want. The next day, Fu Heng turned off his phone, his work phone. He planned to skip work for the day. He had initially thought of turning off both his phones, but then he remembered his promise to someone just yesterday that one line would always be reachable. His finger hesitated over the power button. Assistant Qin, I still have the same question. Is this the CEO's directive or yours? In the Yuanbo trading meeting room, tensions flared once more. Su Chang's expression was even uglier than the last time. And I still have the same answer. Does it make a difference? Seated at the head of the table, Qin Yuchu turned with a smile, her eyes calm. Just moments ago, Qin Yuchu had proposed at the meeting to cut 3 planned projects and redirect more funds to the Down Jacket project. And all 3 of these canceled projects were ones spearheaded by Su Changha. Qin Yuchu hadn't discussed or hinted at this proposal with anyone beforehand. She had brought it up suddenly, startling even the deputy head of the project department, who was observing, and the actual person in charge of the Down Jacket project. The Down Jacket project was an overseas venture, essentially about purchasing low-cost down jackets domestically and exporting them to less developed regions abroad to profit from the trade difference. The project proposal had been pushed through by Deputy Head Li Tianming. Truth be told, he had a slight ulterior motive. The garment factory they planned to source from was owned by a distant relative of his and was facing bankruptcy. The factory had actually already ceased operations. The so-called procurement was, in reality, helping to clear out overstock. Of course, the price offered by the other party was also sufficiently low. The surplus products were only unsold because their styles were out of sync with domestic trends. Li Tianming, seeing the potential profit, had pursued this idea. Unfortunately, due to factors like transportation risks and unassured overseas sales channels, The project proposal had been revised 3 times, but was still rejected by Su Changhe each time. Later, Yuchu had overruled objections and directly bypassed Su Changhe to launch the project, giving Li Tianming and the entire second team an opportunity. But now, with Yuchu pulling this move, Li Tianming was a bit stunned. The original plan was to acquire the factory's surplus stock in 3 phases, with the first batch being just a small trial run. But Yuchu's proposal, just now, was to acquire all of the other parties' remaining stock at a 20% price reduction. On the surface, it seemed fine. The theoretical profit margins based on the numbers would increase significantly. But the risks involved were entirely different. This was, after all, overseas trade. If the goods didn't sell after being shipped, it wasn't as simple as just shipping them back. Moreover, doing this would require diverting funds from the company's other projects. In an instant, many people, including Li Tianming, understood. This wasn't about finance. It was about politics. You need to think this through carefully. If this project doesn't meet expectations, many of the company's projects for the next quarter will be affected, including the recent partnership with Tianyu. Su Changhe took a deep breath and spoke slowly. Nothing to worry about. If we don't have enough money, we'll just get him to provide more. Yuchu shrugged, her tone casual. Hearing this, Su Changhe was taken aback. He had no rebuttal. In that case, according to procedure and regulations, we still need to vote on it. Those who agree with this proposal, please raise your hands. Su Changhe sighed, making a last-ditch effort. Even though he knew the outcome of the vote wouldn't change anything. This company was about to completely fall under the Qin name. Yuchu smiled and was the first to raise her hand. Then, her gaze slowly swept across the meeting room. Those her eyes fell upon, one by one, raised their hands, much to Su Changhe's disbelief, including Shen Qingluan, who had just received voting rights. The only ones who didn't raise their hands were Su Changhe and project supervisor Wu Weiman. The smile on Yuchu's face was sweet, but in Su Changhe's eyes, it was chilling. The others hadn't guessed wrong. Yuchu's move wasn't about business. It was political. She was using a very crude and somewhat childish method to oust Su Changhe. Her goal was to prevent those 3 projects from moving forward. After her previous analysis with Professor Li, she had seen through Su Changhe's tactics, using projects to tie up company funds and thereby secure his influence within the company. These 3 projects were actually similar in nature to the collaboration with Hengyu. Profitable, but with very long timelines, and the partners involved were all influential entities. They were just on a smaller scale, a subtle, insidious encroachment. But now that Yuchu had seen through Su Changhe's plan, how could she let him have his way? How could she possibly allow Fu Hang's company to be controlled by others? Fu Hang might not care, but she couldn't afford not to. Rather than let the company be gradually eaten away in the future, it was better to risk losing some money now and cut out this malignant tumor. The project proposal was approved by senior management vote, and all departments began to coordinate their efforts in an orderly fashion, each to their own duties. When Li Tianming returned to the 26th floor, home to Project Team 2, with the latest news, the entire team erupted. They were oblivious to the political maneuvering behind the scenes. All they knew was that Team 2 was about to take off in a big way. With this kind of momentum, if they could just pull off this project, promotions and raises wouldn't be a mere dream. And among everyone in Project Team 2, the one whose world was shaken the most was the new intern, Junkai. His junior. She actually went this far for me. That day, unable to bear it any longer, he finally went to the HR department to ask for Yuchu's workstation. He needed to ask his junior in person just who she had offended in the company to make his own mentor and his supportive supervisor so incredibly tight-lipped. His thinking was simple. If he could shoulder the burden, he would shoulder it for her. If he couldn't, then at worst, they would face the consequences together and leave Yuanbo Corporation. He believed that with his resume and her accomplishments, they could definitely find better jobs together. This was a man's responsibility, the duty he felt as her senior. Then, in the HR department, he heard a truth so fantastical it felt like a dream. Junior Yuchu was Assistant Qin, the very same Assistant Qin rumored to be the CEO's kept woman, who had achieved a meteoric rise. He felt as if his very soul had been snatched from his body. He returned to his dorm in a daze. That night, as he tossed and turned, unable to sleep, Senior Liu suddenly had a revelation. Through this sordid transaction, he saw the light and greatness hidden behind it. His junior. She truly does care for me. What had Project Team 2's fortunes begun to turn? It was from Junkai's very first day, the down jacket project. His junior had pushed it through, overriding all objections and acting decisively, even at the risk of offending the company's executive vice president, all because he had been assigned to Team 2. She had done it all just to give him more opportunities. How much bitterness and hardship lay buried behind all this. How laughable he had been, inwardly despising that kept woman when he hadn't known the truth. And today, his suspicions were confirmed once more. She could have advanced the project gradually, yet she had made the company take such a huge risk, pushing for quick success. Why? It was also he could fully participate in the entire project within his 3-month internship. By then, his resume would boast a significant and brilliant achievement. By then, even if the company worried he might overshadow his superiors and decide to discard him once he'd served his purpose, he would have options. With such a resume, where wouldn't he be highly regarded? By then, his junior wouldn't have to endure humiliation and bear heavy burdens anymore. They could join forces and start their own venture. Junkai lowered his head, his fists clenched, desperately trying to suppress the tears welling in his eyes. Even if it means death, I have to see this project through. I can't betray her painstaking efforts. Why is he still here? Li Tianming, having just assigned the temporarily revised tasks, turned to see Junkai acting strangely and couldn't help but nudge Su Yijie, Team 2's leader. Ahem. Su Yijie coughed loudly to cover his embarrassment. Junkai's current pained expression made even him, his mentor, feel ashamed. I mentioned it to HR, but they haven't replied. And in turn, why waste so much effort? Li Tianming was annoyed. This was a critical period. Having such a greenhorn around, who knew when he might cause trouble? Just looking at him was vexing. Well, little Lu from HR said he and Assistant Qin do seem to have a good relationship. On his first day, Assistant Qin was chatting quite happily with him by the elevator. Su Yijie mumbled, glancing around. Don't tell me you've caught his foolishness too? Don't you know why Assistant Qin is called Assistant Qin? Li Tianming scoffed, practically snorting fire. I'll keep an eye on him. As soon as I hear from HR, I'll deal with it immediately, Su Yijie said, a corner of his mouth twitching as he feigned ignorance. What was he supposed to do? He was in a tight spot, wasn't he? He was just a team leader, nearly 50 years old. Everyone knew about the ambiguous relationship between eunuch Yu Huatian and imperial consort Shu. But unless the emperor himself issued an edict, who would dare touch eunuch Yu in front of the consort? The HR department, which Su Yijie was so anxiously waiting to hear from, however, had absolutely no time to deal with an intern's matter at that moment. Shen Qingluan stared gravely at the resume in her hand, her brow deeply furrowed. Yuchu's moves were getting bolder. This university student truly couldn't be underestimated. She was fierce, a real tigress. Acting like this, wasn't she clearly trying to force Su Changhe out? Su Changhe might play it safe for a while longer for various reasons, but project manager Wu Weimin definitely wouldn't last much longer. Prestigious European or American university, a returnee. Shen Qingluan looked at the resume, feeling conflicted. It had been sent by a headhunting firm, a returnee graduate from a top university, whose family also seemed to own a large corporation. If they recruited this person, she could undoubtedly replace Wu Weimin as project manager. Not for any other reason than to block Yuchu's path to promoting Li Tianming. Why had the so suddenly granted her this authority? Wasn't it to back someone to counterbalance Yuchu? Otherwise, situations like today's would become frequent, and then the company would truly belong to the Qins. Looking at the file, Shen Qingluan was deeply torn. The resume was perfect, at least on paper. Masters from a prestigious university, a returnee, a relevant major, backed by a prominent family, with established connections. The only fly in the ointment. She was too beautiful and too young. Recruiting such a woman into the company, could she eventually become her own rival? Shen Qingluan suddenly paused at the marital status section. Divorced. A smile touched Shen Qingluan's lips. The CEO wouldn't possibly fall for a divorced woman, would he? Even if he did, she wouldn't be in the same league as her. Besides, shouldn't Yuchu be the one to worry about this first? The corners of Shen Qingluan's mouth curved upwards. That day, Shen Qingluan scheduled an interview with a headhunting firm. Simultaneously, under the name of the company's HR department, she sent out a declaration of intent for position application to all middle and lower-level employees. That's right, just a declaration of intent, no concrete plans attached. Simply put, the company intended to promote some middle and lower-level management staff. If you were interested in such a role, you should put yourself forward. In a nutshell, do you want a promotion? Speak up. As for which positions, or which ones would become vacant. Sorry, That's still under review. Instantly, the entire company was abuzz with rumors. Meanwhile, Li Weiyong walked out of the hospital, her expression a mixture of emotions. She had deliberately waited until after 10 a.m. to go, figuring everyone would have left for class or work by then. But who knew? When she arrived, Yuchu was indeed not there, but neither was Fu Heng. He had actually been discharged, and he had left the previous night. He hadn't even told her. If she hadn't pressed him yesterday, he probably wouldn't have even told her he was hospitalized, right? So, his rush to leave the hospital. Was it also because of her? Was it because Yuchu saw her at the hospital and got upset? She sat in her car, staring blankly, until the coffee she had bought turned cold. Only then did she hesitantly take out her phone. The number you have dialed is switched off. She felt an overwhelming urge to hurl the coffee cup. A deep sense of desolation washed over her. Finally, the man who used to be at her beck and call, whom she could dismiss at will, had reached a point where she couldn't even contact him. Resting her forehead against the steering wheel, she suddenly wanted to cry. If back then, if she hadn't been so willful, so arrogant, would things be different now? The car's hands-free phone rang, its pleasant tone making her jolt. She looked at the central display with a surge of hope, only to see an unfamiliar number. Taking a deep breath to compose herself, she pressed the answer button. Miss Li, hello. This is Zheng Xiaozhou. I contacted you before. Mr. Zheng, hello. It's like this. Based on your previous request, we found a suitable position for you locally in Hansheng. What would be a good time for you to meet with them? Which company? Yuanbo Trading. The initial offer is for project department manager. Hanging up the phone, Li Weiyong took a deep breath. She'd heard a little about Yuanbo Trading. Rumor had it they were planning to partner with Hengyu a while back, but then things seemed to go quiet. Still, she really needed to pull herself together and find something to do. She couldn't just escape the quagmire of one man only to fall into another. Work was undoubtedly the best way to distract herself. Of course, going home was out of the question. Her father wasn't very involved with the company anymore. And while her brother doted on her, her sister-in-law was insufferable, constantly worried Li Weiyong would come home to fight for the family assets. Ridiculous. The company shares have been settled for years. If I don't give them, can you just take them? As for working there, she'd rather work for strangers than join that circus. It would only turn a perfectly fine home into a chaotic mess. She'd never considered working at her family's company before, and now that she was divorced, it was even more out of the question. As for Yuanbo, she didn't reply immediately. After all, the project between Yuanbo and Hengyu was still under negotiation. What if she joined and they put her directly in charge of that project? And you had already made it clear that Wang Haitao, that bastard, was responsible for it. Would she have to negotiate with Wang Haitao then? Forget it. Yuanbo had been doing well these past few years. She shouldn't go and cause them trouble. Private enterprises had it tough enough. Fu Heng had been vegging out at home for half the day, but he couldn't stand it any longer. It just proved that being alone wasn't good when you had things on your mind. The thoughts in your head would only get darker, and the pessimism would deepen into despair. After midnight, he spat out the 2 mouthfuls of instant noodles he'd eaten, threw on a jacket, and headed out. He'd left his work phone at home. He was curious to see what kind of punishment the system would dish out if he slacked off for a day. There were things he'd never considered before, and now he needed to test them out bit by bit. He picked a hutong he rarely visited, planning to find a divey local eatery, order a few small dishes and a bottle of baijiu, listen to the local chatter, and shoot the breeze with some old guys at the next table. However, just as he stepped into the hutong, his brow furrowed. He then quickened his pace and blended into the crowd. 30 seconds later, he emerged from around the corner, munching on a grilled sausage, coldly eyeing the long-legged beauty in front of him who was looking left and right. Caught the human trafficker already? Got so much free time? He snapped, looking at her somewhat annoyed figure. Ing Yanan flinched and turned around awkwardly. I'm trying to catch someone, Ing Yanan said stubbornly. After seeing the hospital surveillance footage yesterday, she had actually started to believe him and had mentally, temporarily cleared Fu Heng of suspicion. But human traffickers were notoriously hard to find. The relevant arrest warrants had been issued, and personnel had been stationed at all major transportation hubs. Since the airports and docks had been locked down immediately, the higher-ups believed the culprits were still in Hansheng. Several locations where the suspects might appear were also under heavy surveillance. Because she'd slacked off for a day, her petty superior had assigned her to this district. The sole reason was that the suspected tenant had a purchase record from a convenience store here a month ago. She'd been staking out the place since early morning and was just getting bored when she spotted Fu Heng. This was no small matter. I was just suspecting you yesterday, and now you, who should be hospitalized, show up at this time in a place where the suspect might appear? Almost without a second thought, Officer Ng Yanin tailed him. But who would have thought that she, who aced her theoretical exams at the police academy every year, would fail so miserably at her first attempt at surveillance, getting spotted in less than 10 minutes? Catching me? Still haven't given up? Fu Hang's expression was incredibly dark. He really wanted to test how much of a negative he'd get after a minus 15% beating. You have no idea how much easy money I'm missing out on earning each day because of you, do you? Who said I was trying to catch you? I was. Ng Yanin avoided Fu Hang's gaze, her voice faltering guiltily. Since he'd spotted her, then regardless of whether he was a suspect or not, her actions were highly inappropriate. If he wasn't, was she going to hurt this good Samaritan hero again? If he was, hadn't she just alerted the target? You were what? Fu Hang asked impatiently. I was looking for Wang Guifeng. Wang Guifeng. Fu Hang was puzzled. Who was that now? Wang Guifeng. Stop. Don't run. Ng Yanin's eyes suddenly widened, and she lunged toward the woman in front of them. What was going on? Fu Hang was stunned, and that domineering shout also startled the middle-aged woman. But the middle-aged woman, presumably Wang Guifeng, didn't even turn her head. The moment she heard the shout, she took off, sprinting into the crowd. Don't run, Ng Yanin roared, a glint of excitement in her eyes. She hadn't expected to actually run into Wang Guifeng here. Wang Guifeng, the tenant from that 7th-floor apartment. Her record showed she was from a village on the border of a remote province, and her temporary residence permit was for domestic service. But after the child fell from the building, she had vanished and couldn't be contacted. That night, the police had forced entry into the apartment and found no signs of anyone living there. But there were traces of recent activity, and by more than one person. This was a human trafficking ring, and that rental apartment was a temporary hideout. You think you can get away when I've spotted you from this distance? I'm the police academy's women's champion in sprints and obstacle courses. A predatory gleam appeared on Ng Yanin's face. This second-class merit was in the bag. The next moment, however, just as she was picking up speed, an iron walk flew at her from the side. She instinctively ducked, and when she looked up, she met a pair of vicious eyes. An accomplice? Ng Yanin immediately realized the identity of the man staring at her. After throwing the walk he'd grabbed, he also turned and ran, but in the opposite direction to Wang Guifeng. Human traffickers. Ng Yanin barely had time to think. She shot Fu Hang a look and bolted after the man. That one look conveyed doubt, a warning, urgency, and a plea for help. In her mind, Wang Guifeng was on record. Even if she escaped, finding her again would be relatively easy. But this man who was obstructing her arrest wasn't in any of the files, so he had to be caught. As for Fu Hang, judging by his stunned expression, he probably wasn't an accomplice. It would be best if he understood her unspoken message and helped with the capture. But if he didn't pursue, it would be understandable. After all, Fu Hang had no obligation to do so. But despite these thoughts, subconsciously, she still hoped Fu Hang would help. She had no backup nearby. She definitely couldn't catch two suspects on her own. The moment she took off, she saw Fu Hang move, chasing in the direction Wang Guifeng had fled. Her heart suddenly settled. With the delivery hero's skills, Wang Guifeng shouldn't be able to escape, right? Fu Hang was actually speechless. He'd been planning a peaceful day of leisure, and then a cop shows up out of nowhere, fine. But how did it turn into a cops and robbers movie? But the moment Ng Yanin shouted human traffickers, a murderous glint flashed in Fu Hang's eyes. Almost without hesitation, Fu Hang shot forward. Ng Yanin had guessed right. When faced with the delivery hero, forget a middle-aged woman. Even Black Widow would have had a tough time. Before Wang Guifeng could run 100 meters, Fu Hang grabbed her by the collar. And that was only because Fu Hang had deliberately slowed down, wanting to see if she had any accomplices waiting. He's hitting me. Help. Someone. Help. Realizing she was caught, Wang Guifeng started screaming at the top of her lungs. At the same time, she twisted her head and snapped her jaws at Fu Hang's hand. Her movements were decisive and vicious. Crack! Fu Hang raised his hand, without a moment's hesitation, and with a joint-dislocating move, wrenched her jaw out of place. Her screams stopped abruptly. But Wang Guifeng was still ferocious. Enduring the pain, she swung her hands, clawing for Fu Hang's face. Crack! Crack! Before her arms could even reach Fu Hang, they went limp and dangled uselessly. He dislocated them too. Fu Hang shoved Wang Guifeng to the ground, staring coldly at her as horrified onlookers watched. Bang! A dull thud echoed from a distance. Fu Hang instinctively ducked his head, looking back in alarm. A gunshot? That woman actually had a gun? Holy crap. How brazen could she be? Firing a gun in a crowded street. But in the next instant, Fu Hang realized something was wrong. He saw Wang Guifeng's expression. Even with her dislocated jaw twisting her face, there was no fear in her eyes when she heard the sound. Instead, her ferocity only intensified. It wasn't Yanin who fired. Fu Hang's heart pounded. He took a step forward and stomped directly on Wang Guifeng's ankles. Crack! Crack! These two cracks were louder, sharper than the previous three. Wang Guifeng's ankle shattered. She's a human trafficker. Call the police. Fu Hang shouted at a bystander who was raising their phone, ready to film, then turned and sprinted towards the direction of the sound. The crowd, initially unsure of the situation, had been shocked by Fu Hang's brutality, dislocating her jaw, then her arms, and after she was already incapacitated, crushing her ankles. What kind of deep-seated hatred was this? Now, hearing she was a human trafficker, several burly onlookers immediately jumped in, pinning Wang Guifeng down, while others started calling the police. Whether it was true or not, calling the police at this point was definitely the right move. Yanin was curled up by the entrance of a clothing store, clutching her waist, her face contorted in anger. Not far in front of her, a middle-aged man holding a store clerk hostage was pointing the dark muzzle of a gun right at her. It had actually started off quite smoothly, really. The middle-aged man had overestimated his own stamina and underestimated her, the police academy's obstacle course champion. In the crowded street, the distance between them had been steadily closing. Then the man panicked. His running rhythm faltered. He twisted his ankle. When she saw him fall, she could almost see the medals and commendations, could almost see her perpetually stern-faced father breaking into a rare smile of relief and pride. The man fell, but scrambled nimbly back to his feet and tried to continue, though his injured foot seemed severe. He stumbled and fell again after just a couple of steps. Yanin slowed her pace, preparing to subdue him from an advantageous angle. In close combat, women were at a physical disadvantage. It was best to take down the opponent in a single strike. Her instructors had drilled that into her. The next moment, the man lunged toward a clothing store along the street. This time, Yanin felt a surge of panic. His action meant the suspect wasn't going to surrender easily, but was preparing to fight to the bitter end. She charged in after him almost without hesitation. And then, she realized she'd been reckless. He actually had a gun. This was a major case. Unfortunately, she'd been shot. It hurt. So much. The two stared daggers at each other. The scene locked in an eerie standoff. The difference was, fear finally flickered in the man's eyes, while Yanin's gaze radiated determination and resilience. The fierce spirit of one ready to die in the line of duty, fearless of sacrifice. It was this very look that made the man hesitate. This woman was seriously hardcore, shot and still so damn fierce. She only made a few thousand a month. Was it really worth all this? You can't escape. My colleagues will be here any minute. Human trafficking, armed assault on an officer. The best you can hope for is life imprisonment. Facing the dark barrel of the gun, Yanin didn't flinch in the slightest. Behind her, it was as if a red curtain had risen, embroidered with golden words. It was the oath she had sworn under the national emblem. Brutality slowly surfaced in the man's eyes. The damn woman was right. He'd face a bullet, if caught anyway. Killing one more would make it worth it. Ha, 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 ha. A bizarre and chilling laugh interrupted the man's brewing resolve. Startled, he swiveled his gun towards the man who had suddenly appeared at the doorway, looking utterly unhinged. After he'd fired his gun, everyone except this foolish woman who'd rushed and had long since fled. The doorway was empty. Now, the sudden appearance of a man laughing so maniacally caused a momentary lapse in his focus. So, you finally get what's coming to you, huh? This is karma. The man completely ignored the gun, instead walking crazily towards the policewoman slumped by the door. Yep, Yanin was stunned too. This was none other than Fu Hang, the one who was supposed to be chasing Wang Guifeng. Smack! A resounding slap. Yanin's head snapped back, then whipped to the side from the force. Fu Hang had put his whole arm into that slap. It landed solidly, sending Yanin's body tumbling partway over. She looked up in astonishment, a trickle of blood at the corner of her mouth, her head ringing. Yep, you really are in cahoots with him. The slap stunned the gunman too. What was going on? Was this a friendly? Reinforcements sent by the boss. No, wait. He was the guy standing next to this cop earlier. They were together. He was a cop. Don't come any closer. The man, realization dawning, tightened his grip on the hostage clerk's neck and yelled furiously. Fu Hang, however, didn't even glance at him. his eyes fixed intently on Yanan on the floor. You bitch. This is payback for cuckolding me. Fu Hang snarled, his expression savage, spitting out each word. What? Question marks practically popped up over the heads of the three people inside the clothing store. I chased you for 6 hard years. 6 years. Through wind and rain, I was at your beck and call. I practically kowtowed to you morning and night, worshipped you like a goddess on a pedestal. And you? You cheated on me behind my back. Fu Hang suddenly screamed hysterically, his voice drowning out the sobbing clerk. Yanan stared blankly. Was this guy insane? Smack. Another slap. Yanan had just started to open her mouth when it was slapped aside. Compared to the first one, though, this one didn't hurt as much. Tell me, what did I ever do to wrong you? Fu Hang's eyes were bloodshot, his face contorted. You wanted a 600,000 bride price, so I sold my family home in the countryside, making my parents live in a shack. You said the new marital home could only have one name on the deed, and I listened to you. You said your younger brother was getting married, so I sold my car. You said you liked a new designer bag, so I even quit smoking. I worked my day job, delivered food at night, and spent weekends at your parents' place as free domestic help. Not only did I do all the chores, I even had to tutor your brother's dim-witted son with his homework and wash your sister-in-law's socks. Tell me, what did I do to wrong you? If you didn't love me, why did you marry me? Tell me, why did you have to go behind my back and be with him? With him. Fu Hang suddenly clutched his head with both hands and broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. The clothing store, once a scene of a tense standoff between police and criminals with weapons drawn, was suddenly engulfed in an inexplicable wave of sorrow. It was a bitterness born from a heart already dead to despair. The terrified, screaming shop assistants fell silent, their gazes filled with pity as they looked at the weeping Fu Hang. I didn't. Yanan, seemingly swayed by this overwhelming emotion, felt as if she had truly committed some unforgivable sin. Her earlier heroic righteousness had vanished completely. Today, she felt she deserved to die 1,000 deaths. Didn't you? Still trying to argue. Fu Hang looked up, and his despair-filled eyes sent a shiver down Yanan's spine. Is the child his? Fu Hang suddenly choked out, his voice hoarse. The sound, as if emanating from the deepest abyss, held no trace of human warmth. Even the middle-aged man holding the gun trembled. I'm type A blood, and so are you. Why is our child type B? Fu Hang's throat felt as if it were filled with lead and mercury, a grating, metallic sound scraping out. You told me it was a genetic mutation because of my smoking. I believed you. I really did. But you shouldn't have gone behind my back, secretly letting the child call that man daddy. Fu Hang suddenly raised his voice, his shout heart-wrenching. He, ha, he, he. Yeah. Fu Hang threw his head back, and that strange, eerie laughter, chilling enough to make one's skin crawl and strike straight to the soul, erupted once more. It's okay, don't be afraid. My dear, I won't hurt you. I love you so much. You're so beautiful, so sexy. I'll never forget the tenderness of the first time you held me. I'll just watch you like this, watch you slowly bleed to death. As Fu Hang spoke, he took a step back, away from Yanan, his eyes fixed on her with a crazed intensity, his face twisted, his features contorted. This expression sent a chill down the middle-aged man's spine. He didn't even dare point his gun at Fu Hang. The saying goes, the soft fear the firm fear the fierce fear the desperate, and the desperate fear the shameless. But what do the shameless fear? They fear the deranged. Those with a few screws loose, they, strangely enough, sat at the top of this pecking order. Aren't you a cop? Your mom said, even if I knew everything, there's nothing I could do to you. There's nothing I can do. I don't dare touch you. You're a cop. Fu Hang suddenly roared again, his hands flailing wildly. I'm just a good-for-nothing. I watched my wife sleep with another man. My son even has to call him daddy, and I have to earn money to raise that bastard child. I'm just a good-for-nothing. Fu Hang's emotions completely spiraled out of control. His flailing arm struck a row of display racks in a clothing store. The heavy racks toppled, sending the clothes hanging on them flying upwards. The middle-aged man's thoughts were a tangled mess. He was utterly bewildered. I'm trying to escape, aren't I? I'm a serious offender. I'm holding a hostage. I even shot a cop. How did the situation suddenly turn into this? Can you guys show me some respect? Before the flying clothes had even landed, he felt his gun hand waver and saw a palm pass through the fluttering garments, growing larger before his eyes. Before he could react, his neck was seized and a feeling of suffocation spread throughout his body. He couldn't muster any strength in his limbs. The hostage shop assistant, losing her support, slumped down limply. The gun clattered to the floor as the clothes drifted down like scattered blossoms. He felt his feet slowly leave the ground, floating, and looked down in terror, only to meet a pair of icy eyes. "Give me one reason not to kill you." Fu Hang held the burly middle-aged man aloft with one hand, his teeth bared in a chilling grin. As Yanin was being put into the ambulance, she looked at Fu Hang through the crowd, her expression incredibly complex. There was confusion, gratitude, a hint of unspoken admiration, and, of course, a touch of indescribable pity. Such a genuine display of emotion. It couldn't have been faked unless he'd truly lived through it. She never imagined he'd experienced something like that. Is that why he doesn't believe in love anymore? Is that why he's become like this, chasing after women everywhere? The middle-aged man, also being loaded onto a police van, was still trembling. He had lost control of his bladder. His pants were damp and sticky. When the autumn wind blew through them, it felt chilly and hollow. He was actually very confused. He was clearly fierce and ruthless, with a blatant disregard for human life. He was clearly a lawless murderer and arsonist. Why, just by meeting those eyes, did he feel as if he were staring directly into hell? It was a fear that came from the depths of his soul. Of course, this fear was soon proven not to be an illusion. Both his wrists were crushed, and his ankles were stomped on and shattered. Unlike Wang Guifeng's dislocated hands, his wrists were directly crushed. He wouldn't be able to hold chopsticks to eat for the rest of his life. Fu Hang spent that afternoon at the police station. Human trafficking and armed assault on police were major cases, and a formal statement was necessary. Fu Hang received unprecedented hospitality. Even Chen Xiao, the chief of the Hanqing police, came personally to offer his regards. Unlike the last time he saved someone, although this too could strictly be considered a heroic act for a just cause, this time he had genuinely helped the police capture 2 serious criminals and save an officer from gunmen. People naturally favor those they know, don't they? Chief Chen gripped Fu Hang's hand firmly, his smile exceptionally warm. When Fu Hang tactfully requested that his information and likeness be omitted from subsequent news reports, the chief thumped his chest and promised to implement the highest level of the witness protection program to ensure Fu Hang's personal safety and prevent retaliation from criminals. The two had a very pleasant conversation, and when Fu Hang left, Chief Chen personally saw him to the door. "You think this badass really asked for the witness protection program because he's scared of retaliation?" said the officer driving Fu Hang, his expression strange as he dropped Fu Hang off at Century Plaza. He was one of the first backup officers to arrive at the scene. He had clearly seen the injuries on the 2 suspects. Someone like him? Shouldn't he be on file under normal circumstances? "Well, I heard Sister Yanin mention something yesterday," the other officer said, licking his lips hesitantly as he watched Fu Hang's retreating figure. "Oh, he's a master of time management." The gazes from inside the car shifted from admiration to reverence. Saved target's life, completed triggered mission, eliminating evil and pacifying the good. Reward: 1 project proposal. Fu Hang, walking towards the milk tea shop, stopped in his tracks, his face full of astonishment. "What the heck?" Fu Hang looked around suspiciously, then at his empty hands. "Where's the reward? And what the hell is a project proposal? I took down 2 vicious criminals, and this is what you give me. Speaking of which, what about saving the child? I jumped from the 3rd floor. Are you just going to ignore that? System? System? What about the reward for saving the child?" The system didn't respond. "Damn it. What rotten luck." Fu Hang pursed his lips, pulled out a cigarette, and stuck it in his mouth. For some reason, he really craved a mango pomelo sago now. The craving had started the moment he crushed that gunman's hand. However, when he stood outside the Sweet Dew milk tea shop, his jaw dropped, and he was so stunned that the half-smoked cigarette stuck to his lip fell without him even noticing. "What's going on? I just skipped work for half a day, and oh, by the way, nabbed a couple of fugitives." Fu Hang muttered, staring at the milk tea shop that was so packed it was practically bursting at the seams. He squinted at the sign above, checking it several times. Is this line really snaking all the way to the door? Where did these crowd control barriers come from? Does the shop even own these things? Unsure, Fu Hang hesitated, craning his neck to observe cautiously. Then, he heard an ethereal, clear, singing voice drift from inside. "Le Yahui, is he actually live streaming? And it's this effective?" Wary, he pulled a mask over his face, lowered his head, and squeezed his way into the shop. Sure enough, the crowd inside was even denser than the one outside. There was barely room to stand. And there was Lei Yu, broadcasting gear set up, standing nonchalantly on the loft Fu Hang used for his brakes, the curtain carelessly shoved aside. The atmosphere inside was electric, almost like a music festival. It was mostly young people, a lot of them looking like college students, clutching their milk teas and swaying to the music. It really did feel like a fan meet and greet. But just then, Fu Hang was struck by a very serious problem. I've been reckless. If this keeps up, where am I supposed to rest? Where can I go to just slack off? Am I going to have to queue up just to buy milk tea for Qingluan in the future? The milk tea shop seemed to have been revitalized, but did this shop even need to make money? The system pays the staff's wages. Whether it makes a profit or not has nothing to do with me. As this dawned on him, Fu Hang's gaze towards Lei Yu turned decidedly unfriendly. Wait a minute. Fu Hang's eyes shifted from Lei Yu to a girl sitting on the stairs. She wore a fur-collared shawl, and beneath her leather shorts, her fair, smooth, long legs were casually draped over the steps, black leather boots encasing her well-rounded calves. So white, so long. But who are you? He could see that this girl also had a set of live-streaming equipment, and she was flashing various sweet smiles at her camera. His gaze swept further, and he noticed several other people in the throng also live-streaming. What on earth is going on? Fu Hang spotted Xia Xiaofeng in the crowd, and without a word, grabbed him and dragged him outside. Boss, you're here? Wow, you're a miracle worker. Look, our shop's business is booming. Xia Xiaofeng was beside himself with excitement the moment he saw Fu Hang. A milk tea shop on the verge of closing, a place that used to sell only 2 cups a day. And how long had it been since the boss took over? What's the situation? Spill it, Fu Hang said, feeling a headache coming on. As Xia Xiaofeng recounted the events with dramatic flair, Fu Hang gradually understood. The previous night, Lei Yu had kept his word and come to the milk tea shop to start his live stream. It was Lei Yu's first stream since that confession video. Previously, while Lei Yu had a bit of a following, it was mostly confined to his little corner at Han University. On a good day, his stream might get over 1,000 viewers. Usually, it was just a few hundred. But he seemed to have underestimated the traffic generated by that video. The moment yesterday's stream started, viewer numbers instantly shot past 3,000. After he sang reserved twice, the count hit 5,000. Lei Yu was ecstatic. He'd never experienced anything like it. So, egged on by his viewers, he began to vividly, and with considerable embellishment, explain the story behind his confession. Throughout this, he naturally didn't forget his benefactor, constantly emphasizing how the milk tea shop owner had helped and encouraged him, how timid and dejected he had been, and how, with the owner's repeated guidance, he finally mustered the courage to be bold for once, creating a legend. His frequent mentions of the milk tea shop, however, soon drew backlash from netizens, with some even accusing him of shilling products as soon as he got a little fame. Lei Yu swore up and down that he hadn't taken a single cent from the milk tea shop and announced directly on stream. Starting today, he would live stream from this milk tea shop every day, and in the future, he would only live stream from this shop. Such a decisive stance convinced people of the pure friendship between him and the shop owner. That night, when the viewer count broke 10,000, he excitedly announced that if any local viewers could make it to the shop before he signed off, he'd treat them to a signature mango pomelo sago. In the end, 17 college students showed up for the fun of it, 3 of whom were Lei Yu's roommates. When he ended the stream, the peak concurrent viewership had reached 12,809. Lei Yu was thrilled, and in his heart, he sincerely thanked his master. And because of yesterday's product placement, when the shop opened this morning, sure enough, a few college students trickled in, buying milk tea as if to try something new and taking photos by the entrance to post online. But there weren't many. Only a dozen or so cups were sold all morning. However, Lei Yu, after seeing the stats from last night's stream, had been too excited to sleep. Having gotten a taste of success, he arrived with all his gear right after lunch today. Xia Xiaofeng was, of course, delighted to see this and eagerly helped him set up. The afternoon stream's viewership wasn't as high as the previous day. After all, who's glued to their phone in the middle of the afternoon? But Lei Yu wasn't discouraged. He continued to sing his heart out and banter with his viewers. When they teased him about whether he was giving away free milk tea today, he showed he'd wised up. He said yes, but it was limited to 10 cups, and they'd be given out via a draw. He explained he was a student and didn't have much money. The viewers were understanding. The stream simmered along, maintaining around 2,000 viewers. Then, someone unexpectedly appeared on camera, Li Weiyong. Having been turned away at the hospital, Li Weiyong was at a loose end. Whether she was deliberately looking for an excuse or not, she came in and ordered a mango pomelo sago. Li Weiyong was here. Hearing this, Fu Hang's expression turned peculiar. What's with this young missy? After Qin, Yuchu tanked things so badly yesterday, you're still not cutting your losses today? Are you really stuck? Yeah, She ordered a mango pomelo sago. But she paid for it, Xia Xiaofeng added, carefully observing Fu Hang's face as if prompted by some mischievous impulse. Li Weiyang's unexpected appearance caused a small stir in the live stream. Lei Yu had met Li Weiyang before. Is this Master's wife? He wondered. A sly idea instantly popped into his head, and he discreetly angled the camera towards Li Weiyang. Without saying much, he chose a few heartfelt love songs and began to sing. The oglers in the chat got excited. What did netizens love most? Unexpected encounters and authenticity like this. Candid shots were far more captivating than those internet girls with beauty filters cranked to the max. Besides, Lei Yu's stream didn't use any beauty filters. Netizens had repeatedly confirmed this. In Lei Yu's own words, he was a singer and disdained relying on his looks to make a living. So, this customer who had suddenly appeared, without any filters, was she a true, natural stunner? Holy crap! Are the customers at this milk tea shop really this high caliber? Li Weiyang had ordered her milk tea and was sitting quietly in a booth, head down, lost in thought. Fu Hang had mentioned Lei Yu's live streaming boosting business, but she hadn't paid it much mind. Instead, her thoughts drifted back to this man's planning and execution. He really had changed a lot. Sipping her milk tea, she almost regarded Lei Yu as the shop's resident singer. She wasn't annoyed when she noticed the live stream camera. Instead, she offered a polite nod and a smile. That smile made the oglers in the chat feel it was all worth it. Even the female viewers were captivated by the aura her smile exuded. The stream's viewership began to skyrocket. After half a cup of milk tea and listening to 2 songs, Li Weiyang suddenly requested to hear reservedness. This was one of the most common requests in Lei Li's stream, and Layla knew it, which was why he'd been trying to find excuses to avoid it all day. A music streamer who only sang one song could easily get pigeonholed, which was detrimental to his growth. But this was Shenyang's request. How could Lei Lu possibly refuse? He immediately started singing reservedness. The melodious tune and heart-stirring lyrics echoed through the milk tea shop. It wasn't Li Weiyang's first time hearing this song. She had come across the video many times. But this time, she listened more intently than ever before. Staring blankly at the milk tea in front of her, Li Weiyang was slightly lost in thought, immersing herself in the mood painted by the lyrics. The first time I let go of my reserve, fantasizing about everything, you and I. The stream's visuals were as beautiful as a meticulously filmed music video, and viewers spammed 666 in approval. Meanwhile, a few enthusiastic college students had already rushed out of campus, hoping to chance upon the sophisticated career woman who clearly had a story to tell. The stream's viewership reached 7,000. Thank you. As the song ended, Li Weiyang snapped back to reality, politely expressed her thanks, and got up to leave. Only half a cup of mango pomelo sago remained on the table. The faint lipstick stain on the straw a silent testament to an untold, poignant story that had unfolded there. Layla was ecstatic. He felt like this milk tea shop was his comeback spot, his place of resurgence. He'd long forgotten his plan to stream for only an hour, even thinking he might as well just move into the milk tea shop. So he kept singing. When he got tired, he'd chat and joke around, take a few sips of milk tea, and then continue singing. As word spread, the milk tea shop gradually got busier in the afternoon, though most people were there to check in for social media or watch the live stream. Of course, a few came with secret hopes, looking for a chance encounter. Most of these curious onlookers were college students. They had free time, after all. But this meant that more and more people started appearing in Lei Li's stream camera view. What are college students like? Youthful, attractive, sunny, and vibrant. This applied to both the young men and women. Don't forget, it was still afternoon, and classes hadn't ended yet. The diligent, unadorned future pillars of society, engrossed in their studies, wouldn't be found here at this time. The online viewers were genuinely surprised. Was the clientele of this place really this good? Though not on par with the sophisticated lady from before, these young women and men were all quite cute. Just as many of the more lecherous viewers were getting restless, the stream camera captured someone else. Unlike the innocent, gentle, and demure image from the previous video, this person today was dressed in a simple yet elegant business suit, looking sharp and energetic. Yuchu had arrived. Leilu immediately stopped his stream. Well, he stopped singing and interacting, but the camera was still rolling and rushed over to greet her. Yuchu was a little surprised to find Leilu singing and streaming in the milk tea shop, but realizing it was to draw traffic to Fu Hang's shop, she was exceptionally cooperative. The two stood quietly at a distance from the camera, talking in low voices, occasionally letting out soft laughs. The viewers in the stream chat fell silent. What the camera captured was youthful shyness, a pure, innocent sort of budding romance. The two protagonists of the confession video stood quietly before the camera, serenely sharing the unspoken yet deeply felt stirrings in their hearts. There was no affectation, no scripting, no clowning around, no suggestive teasing or provocative gestures. It was like a breath of fresh air in the streaming world, cleansing the viewers who had been steeped in vulgarity. The main appeal was its authenticity. The key selling point was its sincerity. The stream's popularity began to skyrocket. Almost everyone who tuned in was instantly captivated. Many who had rushed over earlier to join the crowd hadn't left either. They all took out their phones to record this beautiful moment, then xickly posted it to the campus network, eager for their friends and relatives to get the latest scoop. Yuchu didn't actually stay long. She had really just come to buy milk tea. After Xia Xiaofeng handed her the prepared drink, she waved to the camera with a smile and left. But by then, the number of online viewers in the stream had once again surpassed 10,000. Back in front of the camera, Lei Lu explained that Yuchu came from a modest background and had found an off-campus internship, working part-time to support her studies, and she had to rush off to work. Many believed this explanation. Instantly, a flood of comments encouraging Lei Lu to keep it up and take good care of that girl flew across the screen, and there were even 2 carnival super gifts. Meanwhile, in the milk tea shop, the college students who had come to see the commotion started to linger, and the atmosphere on site became electric. Thanks to the traffic funneled from the campus network, the number of viewers in the stream was also skyrocketing. By 3 in the afternoon, it had astonishingly reached 28,414 people. This was another personal record for Lei Li's stream, and he put even more effort into it. So, who was out on the stairs then? Fu Heng didn't react much upon hearing Yuchu had visited, but he felt a slight unease in his heart about Lei Lu having Yuchu on camera again. Xiao Qi? You don't know her. Xia Xiaofeng was stunned. Mo, known online as Xiao Qi, was a girl who had loved singing since she was little. She hadn't gone to college. After graduating high school, she worked as a resident singer in bars. Later, when live streaming became popular, she seized the opportunity and became one of Hanqing's few prominent singing streamers. She was sweet-looking with a fiery personality, excelled at outdoor streams due to her cheerful nature, and had outstanding interaction with passersby and viewers. But recently, she'd hit a bottleneck. Audiences experience aesthetic fatigue. Those who genuinely liked listening to songs didn't necessarily care for watching her figure, and those who came for her looks weren't willing to spend time listening to her sing. Her popularity had started to decline. The entry barrier for the live streaming industry is low, but it's incredibly hyper-competitive. Almost every day, some newcomer with a novel idea would come along and show the veterans how it's done. She had naturally seen the confession video. In her line of work, it was crucial to keep an eye on what competitors were doing. Xiao Qi's team was already drafting a plan to do a remake, setting it at a marriage proposal scene. And she had, of course, also paid attention to Lei Lu, this new streamer who was on the verge of overnight fame. Yesterday, she'd seen Lei Li's stream. It was ordinary, but he wasn't stupid. He knew how to capitalize on that wave of traffic. But why choose a milk tea shop? A sponsor? Getting into sponsored content so quickly could backfire, couldn't it? Then, today, she saw Lei Lu streaming again. When Yuchu appeared on camera, a plan suddenly struck her. This wave of popularity, she could ride it too. So, she quickly gathered her team and equipment and rushed to that milk tea shop. Her appearance caused a minor commotion. After all, compared to Lei Lu, she was a big shot in Hanqing's streaming scene. She first pretended to be there to buy milk tea. After seeing Lei Lu, she enthusiastically greeted the audience watching his stream. Then, when viewers in his chat urged her to sing a song, she asked Lei Lu and the others present if she could also start her own stream. And so, the PK battle began. A simultaneous online and offline showdown. In an instant, the milk tea shop was fired up. Countless local netizens flocked to the location, while passers-by, unaware of what was happening, also stopped to watch. System, let me ask you something. This bubble tea shop's profits, who do they belong to? After hearing this unbelievable recap, Fu Heng wearily waved Xia Xiaofeng away. The other server had already come over to call him several times. They were just too busy. Were they stuffing money into sacks, or what? This was even with Xia Xiaofeng being quick-witted enough to call back the 2 night shift workers. This was even with Xia Xiaofeng being quick-witted enough to call back the 2 night shift workers. Were they stuffing money into sacks, or what? This project investment was initiated for the target customer. The profits belonged to the target customer. What? Wait, let me get this straight. The target customer here should be Shen Qingluan, right? His original reason for applying was, Shen Qingluan likes this bubble tea. If it closed down, it would be hard for him to suck up to her, so he bought it to make it easier to suck up. That was it, right? So this shop's profits go to Shen Qingluan? On what grounds? Are you sure you know what you're saying? I can give you a chance to rephrase. After all, system errors, network lag, data loss, and alike are very common. Fu Hang's expression turned ferocious. He could understand not getting the profits himself. Otherwise, it would be a bug. Shen Qingluan likes pickled fish, bought it. Shen Qingluan likes amusement parks, bought them. Shen Qingluan likes BSJ, bought it. In less than half a year, Fu Hang could buy all of Hansheng. Then, what the hell would he be sucking up for? So, Fu Hang's initial guess was that the system would reclaim these profits and then issue them to him as a salary. Aren't all unscrupulous capitalists like that? But how could he have imagined that these profits would actually go to Shen Qingluan? Damn it, how is this supposed to work? It doesn't make sense logically, does it? The key is who gives it. How is it given? Under what pretext? Am I supposed to give it? Wouldn't Shen Qingluan be confused if she received the money? Me, a game booster, gifting her a bubble tea shop? What was the point of me working so hard to build this persona? This project's investment was initiated for the target customer. The profits belong to the target customer. The system thoughtfully repeated the previous notification, word for word, without missing a single one. Fu Hang fell silent. He felt this was the system's punishment for him slacking off at work every day. This was increasing the game's difficulty in disguise. Or, should he just lay his cards on the table with Shen Qingluan, drive up in a GT900 right her face, then grandly announce, I'm the CEO, toss her a bubble tea shop, max out her stats, and win her affection in one fell swoop? Then, pull up his pants and leave dominantly? Seemed kinda awesome. Anyway, he had Yong and Ying in his backups. He was totally set, right? A strange glint flashed in Fu Hang's eyes as he stroked his chin with a sleazy smile. But the next moment, he hesitated. Yong wasn't as stable as Shen Qingluan. There weren't many women who could stay true to their original intentions and keep their mission in mind, consistent for 3 years. No, for 6 years straight. Her Tao heart as firm as a rock. If something went wrong with her later, it would be hard to fix. To bang or not to bang? Fu Hang's gaze wandered. No, Yong was too unstable. Looking at the situation, she might explode before Shen Qingluan. And that Yingyan, not to mention her identity in the criminal investigation department. Her sheer ferocity scared Fu Hang. When that woman got fierce, she was truly a tigress, huh? Sucking up to her, you'd either lose a chunk of flesh with every lick or chip a tooth. No, he couldn't make any more rash decisions. Stay steady, don't mess around. As he pondered, his gaze unconsciously swept towards the office building visible in the distance. That was the office building where Yuan Trading was located. Back in the shop, he stood in a spot the live stream camera couldn't reach and waved to Leilu. Leilu had seen Fu Hang earlier, but couldn't bear to part with the live stream's viewer data, so he just glanced over from afar as a sign of respect. But now that he saw his master calling him, he couldn't care about anything else. He quickly aimed the live stream camera at the counter, broadcasting the bubble tea making process, and hurried down. Behind him, Xiao Qi was suspicious, guessing Fu Hang's identity. That's enough for today. Stop it, Fu Hang said impatiently, his face cold. Stop. Leilu was taken aback. Thinking of the live stream's numbers, he really couldn't bear to. 50,000 viewers. I said stop, so stop. Fu Hang's mouth quirked. Lei Li's brow twitched. He instantly thought of a possibility. Too much a good thing. Was Master afraid I'd overexpose myself and burn out the hype? Understanding this, Lei Li's face lit up with a smile, and he immediately turned back. Tell that other one to stop too, Fu Hang added. After Lei Lu relayed the message, Xiao Qi thought for a moment, apologized to her live stream audience, sang one more song, and then ended the stream. She actually felt it wasn't the best time to end the stream either, as her popularity was still rising. But alas, it was their shop. Xiao Qi packed up her equipment and came over to Fu Hang with a grin, carefully sizing up this young boss. But she found it a bit strange. Business was booming, so why was he wearing such a sour face? Hello, I'm Xiao Qi. Thanks for your hard work. Xia Xiaofeng, get everyone a mango pomelo sago. Fu Hang nodded politely and turned to walk towards the loft. Xiao Qi was stunned. Ignoring me? I at least helped you attract viewers, hype up the place, and do promotion. I have over 100,000 fans. Dismissing me with just one cup of bubble tea? Xiao Qi watched Fu Hang walk away without pausing, feeling very annoyed. Today's livestream data could be considered a win-win, But that win-win was between her and Lei Lu, right? You just completely freeloaded off our hype, okay? Damn it, with a boss like this, no wonder business was so bad before. Xiaoqi huffed, took her equipment and team, and left directly, not even taking the complimentary bubble tea. The live stream stopped, and the curious onlookers gradually dispersed. Those waiting in line for bubble tea also began to lose patience and left one by one. Before long, the bustling scene at the bubble tea shop cooled down. Of course, some customers were still sitting in the booths, either taking photos to check in online or just chatting and goofing off. Fu Hang pulled the loft curtains closed again and flopped onto the bed, exhausted. The bubble tea shop's revenue probably isn't settled daily, right? Before, they only sold 2 cups a day, most likely bought by himself. What profits? It was more like calculating how much they lost each day. But looking at today's situation, the profits should be substantial. If it was settled daily, wouldn't Shen Qingluan receive the money today? This project is settled monthly, the system warmly reminded him. Fu Hang breathed a slight sigh of relief. That meant there was still room to maneuver. Footsteps sounded on the stairs, light and steady. Boss! Xia Xiaofeng's voice came from outside, sounding cautious. Come in, Fu Hang said irritably. Boss! Lei Lu insisted on coming up himself. He got carried away with his singing, and I couldn't stop him. Xia Xiaofeng explained in a low voice. Seeing Fu Hang's stern face, he thought he was angry because someone had trespassed into his private office area. Keep an eye on him in the future. Don't let him come up. Later, find someone to put up a wall and install a door. Fu Hang was indeed annoyed thinking about this. This was his room, not open to the public. Besides, it was quite nice for a midday nap here. Yes, I'll find a renovation company right away. They can build it with composite boards. It'll be done in 2 days at the quickest. Also, do we need to hire more people? I brought the night shift staff in early today, but if it's like this every day, 2 people per shift definitely won't be enough. If they can't handle it, then limit sales. What kind of bubble tea shop works its employees like cattle? Fu Hang flared up instantly. I'm already stressing over this, and you just had to bring up the sore subject. The bubble tea selling like crazy makes you happy. Huh? What's it to you? Is the money going into your pocket? You're just an employee. Xia Xiaofeng was stunned. Those words. Something seemed off. Was this concern for a subordinate? But across from him, Fu Hang's eyes lit up. Limited quantities? Holy crap. I'm a business prodigy. Afraid of making money? I just won't sell, and that's that. Right? Starting tomorrow, put up a notice. Every single one of our milk tea varieties will have a daily limit. The total number of cups can't exceed. How many did we sell today, by the way? As of now, about 400 cups. But most of what we sold later were the plainest, original milk teas. For the others, we didn't have enough ingredients, Xia Xiaofeng answered honestly, not quite grasping Fu Hang's intention. Of course, this was also one of the reasons he'd come to find Fu Hang. They needed to order more ingredients. See? What did I tell you? We can't even keep up with ingredients, so how can we not limit sales? Fu Hang stated, full of self-importance and sounding perfectly reasonable. Xia Xiaofeng remained dazed. If they were short on ingredients, couldn't they just buy more? What about yesterday? How many did we sell then? Yesterday, because the live stream only started in the evening, not many people came, but we still sold nearly 100 cups. All right, then starting tomorrow, the total limit will be 200. No, 150 cups. Once they're sold, we close up shop for the day. Fu Hang hesitated for a moment, calculating the milk tea shop's expenses. 150 cups a day, that should probably cover costs, right? And if he did this, they might run out of customers in a few days, and he'd be back to his previous leisurely life. As for Shen Qingluan, he wouldn't have to worry about anything either. Only 150 cups a day? Xia Xiaofeng was shocked. This time, he completely failed to understand Fu Hang's plan. That's right. Also, about the hiring you mentioned earlier, get that sorted out quickly. 2 shifts a day is too hard on you all. Once we have enough staff, we'll do 3 rotating shifts with, let's say, 6 people per shift for now. For behind the counter, 2 waiting tables. Fu Hang's mind was racing. While cutting costs, he also needed to increase spending. He didn't know the exact profit margin on a cup of milk tea, but he knew it was definitely huge. What if 150 cups still made money? Hire more people, spend it. What was there to fear about losing money? It wasn't his money. Anyway. 6 people per shift? 3 rotating shifts. Xia Xiaofeng was astounded. He'd suggested hiring because he was worried they'd be too busy and make mistakes. After all, people were consuming these drinks, and any error could be serious. But now they were limiting sales and still hiring, and hiring so many at once? 3 rotating shifts. What kind of milk tea shop had this set up? Were they only hiring summer temps? You handle the hiring. Oh, and from now on, you're the manager of this shop. You call the shots here. I'm doubling your salary. Fu Hang waved his hand magnanimously. He had a particularly good impression of this young man who knew to call him boss. Xia Xiaofeng's complex expression couldn't keep up with his rapidly changing emotions. He was a manager now, salary double. The pay for the others will stay the same as before. Get the hiring done quickly. Fu Hang took a deep breath, feeling incredibly dominant. He'd swiftly dealt with the pitfall the system had dug for him. Boss, if we limit sales, we won't need that many people. Besides, 150 cups, isn't that too few? If customers come and we're not serving, just having them stand there watching doesn't look good, does it? That's easy to solve. Go buy a few timers later, the kind you tap to record seconds. Then, organize staff training. Standardize every step of the preparation down to the second. How many stirs, how many seconds to shake? List it all out. Extend the time it takes to make 1 cup of milk tea, ideally 10 minutes per cup. That way, customers can't complain, and they'll even say we're meticulous. Fu Hang felt a sudden surge of inspiration, his thoughts crystal clear. Xia Xiaofeng opened his mouth, but for a moment, he seemed unable to refute it. In that case, let's just close for the day tomorrow. You sort out the hiring and training, and we'll reopen when everything's ready. Tell them downstairs to stop too. Let's call it an early day, and don't forget my door. Fu Hang felt refreshed and strode downstairs. He felt incredibly clever. Closing the shop for a day? Who would have thought of that? Weren't we a hit? I'll just let things cool down. When the netizens who heard the buzz arrive to see the milk tea shop closed, what will they think? Stepping out of the shop, Fu Hang stretched mightily, feeling that the sunset was exceptionally beautiful. Today's salary of 400,000 yuan has been deposited. Current affection levels for romance targets. Shen Qingluan, 71. 11%, Li Weiyang, 69. 3%, Ying Yanan, 29. 95%. Host, please continue your efforts. Huh? Skipped work for a day and still got paid? Shen Qingluan's affection continued to drop slightly. Li Weiyang's had also dipped a bit, but Ying Yanan. I saved your damn life, and it's only 29%? Huh, what a bitch. As for Ying Yanan's affection returning to a normal level, Fu Hang wasn't surprised. Even though he'd slapped her twice, he had, after all, genuinely saved her life. She couldn't be that ungrateful, could she? The overall metrics remained stable, and Fu Hang felt pleased in mind and body. He was just about to find a place to continue his afternoon plans, visiting cultivating his artistic sensibilities. Suddenly, Fu Hang hesitated again. In the past, he had always been diligent, hard-working, dedicated, and uncomplaining. He'd never thought of skipping work or taking leave, since skipping work for a day still meant getting paid. Could he test the limits further? Fu Hang licked his lips, his mind starting to race with mischievous ideas. As night fell, Fu Hang, dressed to the nines, wearing a luxury watch worth hundreds of thousands, drove his GT 900 out. Destination, Buckingham Palace Private Club. He had no ulterior motives, merely wanting to go and critique the decadence and sinfulness of the wealthy. Under the security guard's respectful gaze, the car entered the club's exclusive parking lot. Another immaculately uniformed guard wearing white gloves hurried over, raising a hand to help open the door. But Fu Hang hadn't unlocked it. Instead, he hesitated, looking at the incoming call displayed on the car's large screen. Yuchu. It was his personal phone ringing. He'd left his work phone at home and hadn't even turned it on today. After a moment's hesitation, he rolled down the window, waved at the guard, rolled it back up, and then switched the call to his phone. Is your shoulder feeling better? Yuchu's voice was very gentle. It's pretty much fine now, Fu Hang replied, his voice also calm. Have you eaten dinner? I have. What about you? I've eaten too. The call fell into silence. Fu Hang felt a bit stuffy in the car. Glancing at the guard standing at a distance, he opened the window again. Are you free tomorrow? Yuchu spoke again. I should be working. Fu Hang raised an eyebrow, speaking instinctively. But then, he saw the calendar on the car's large screen. Tomorrow was the first of the month? A SIMP's day off? Oh, I see. Yuchu's voice sounded dejected. Actually, I might not have to work, Fu Hang added, as if compelled by some mischievous impulse. Really? Her voice on the other end brightened instantly, making Fu Hang's lips curl into a smile. Then, can you accompany me on a business trip? A business trip? Fu Hang's smile froze. It's my day off, and you want me to work overtime with you? The company is working on a project. It involves a lot of money, and we're collaborating with a clothing factory. I'm a bit worried, so I want to go see it myself, Yuchu said cautiously. Where? Not far, just Shuncheng. I checked the GPS. It's only a 3-hour drive. Fu Hang grimaced, very hesitant. I've never been to any city other than Hancheng. Qin Yuchu suddenly said weakly, sounding guilty, timid, insecure, and shy. Fu Hang's heart clenched, and he almost agreed on the spot. But he quickly snapped back to reality. This was Qin Yuchu? Huh, do you think I just met you yesterday? Where's that siren voice of yours? You're going on a business trip alone? The company didn't arrange for anyone else. Fu Hang curled his lip disdainfully. Did she really think I've been twiddling my thumbs for the past 3 years? I'm a veteran. Yes, a few colleagues from the project department are going too. But they're all men. When do you leave? Shall I pick you up? Fu Hang sat up straight, asking very seriously. The appointment with them is at 3 in the afternoon, but I was thinking of going over today. Qin Yuchu hesitated before speaking again. Leave today? Yes. The collaborator is a distant relative of the assistant project manager. I want to secretly check out the factory tomorrow morning. An unannounced inspection? Very meticulous. Nothing wrong with that. Going to check it out alone? That's why I'm scared and want you to come with me. What time do we leave? Is now okay? Wait for me. Fu Hang was a meticulous man. Considering Qin Yuchu was on an incognito visit, he parked the GT900 and went to a car dealership to retrieve the ADQ7. Compared to the 33 million yuan GT900, the ADQ7 seemed understated and modest. As the stars glittered brightly, the black SUV hit the highway to Shenzhen. Since it was a business trip, Fu Hang asked, fitting the occasion, "How's the company doing lately?" And then, Assistant Qin launched into full professional work report mode. Listening to her, Fu Hang felt completely lost and on the verge of sleep. In just half an hour, the Fu Hang who had been brimming with ambition at the milk tea shop, convinced he was a business genius, had his sales deflated. He was forced to accept the reality that he was only cut out to be a simp. However, Fu Hang did pick up on one thing. Vice President Su Changhe wouldn't last much longer. As expected, you couldn't be fooled by that woman's delicate and weak appearance. When it was time to strike, she was truly ruthless, wasn't she? He just wondered how things were going with Shen Qingluan. Knowing her, and with the amount of leeway he'd given her, there should have been some developments by now. But Fu Hang didn't ask Qin Yuchu about this. Fu Hang knew what could and couldn't be said. For him, it wasn't just a skill, it was a professional instinct. Fu Hang didn't bring it up, but Qin Yuchu took the initiative to talk about Shen Qingluan. Shen Qingluan had also been making big moves recently. She had successfully launched several internal job competition schemes, encouraging a large number of mid to lower level employees to nominate themselves. If these plans were all implemented, the company would undergo a major shakeup. Fu Hang raised an eyebrow, but didn't pursue the topic, feigning complete disinterest. Qin Yuchu quietly looked at Fu Hang's profile and also stopped her work report. The car sped on, but the conversation between the two inside dwindled. The GPS kept announcing the remaining distance, and the closer they got to their destination, the less they spoke, until, with only an hour left, they fell almost completely silent. The planned inspection was for tomorrow. It was already 9 at night, so naturally, it was impossible to go on an incognito visit at this hour. So, what would they do after arriving in Shenzhen? I know you're playing hard to get, and you understand my feigned reserve. It's just an unspoken understanding between us. In fact, ever since that phone call, Fu Hang had a premonition. Today, something might really happen. But, was it fair? It felt like that cliché drama plot point all over again. Without the golden fillet, I cannot save you. But with it, I cannot love you. An inexplicable sense of guilt began to make Fu Hang agitated. He rolled down the window and took out a cigarette. Flick! A flame lit up before his eyes. This woman's hand always appeared at the most opportune moment. Fu Hang didn't look at her, lowered his head to light the cigarette, his eyes fixed intently on the road ahead. The next moment, Fu Hang's eyes narrowed sharply. The muscles in his hands gripping the steering wheel bulged as he fought to maintain control, and his foot, which had been on the accelerator, instantly slammed onto the brake. Crash! A speeding car ahead smashed into the guardrail, and then, due to inertia, began to roll. Fu Hang's reaction and handling were incredibly fast. He controlled his speed and pulled over to the side of the road. Looking at the car that had rolled and ended up on its side, lodged against the median barrier, Fu Hang's eyes blazed with fury. He wasn't far behind it and had a clear line of sight. Just moments before, another car had been driving parallel to the crashed vehicle. It was because of this that Fu Hang had instinctively slowed down, giving him time to react. He had seen it very clearly. The black SUV that had been overtaking and driving alongside suddenly swerved. Perhaps it was due to driver fatigue or a lapse in concentration. But the point of impact from that swerve was terribly unlucky, directly causing the white car to crash into the median. This was a serious traffic accident, yet the black car had just driven off without the slightest intention of stopping or even slowing down. Get to the other side of the guardrail and call the police. Fu Hang turned on his hazard lights, threw open his door, and got out, running towards the wrecked car in the middle of the road. Yuchu looked a little flustered, but her obedience to Fu Hang was almost instinctual. Without hesitation, she got out of the car and climbed over the guardrail. Fu Hang was fast, but when he reached the wrecked car and looked up, a flicker of horror crossed his face. Smoke was coming from the undercarriage. An NEV. Fu Hang didn't dare hesitate. Grabbing the guardrail, he leaped up, pressed himself against the car window. The vehicle was on its side against the median and yanked hard at the door. The door was locked. It wouldn't budge. Fu Hang pressed against the window and pounded on it desperately, tried to alert the passengers inside. But the next moment, the horror in Fu Hang's eyes deepened. Through the window, he saw the scene inside. 2 adults, 1 child. In the front was a male driver, likely the father, and in the back, a young mother and a child secured in a child safety seat. The child was very young, about the same size as the one he had saved the other day. But now, apart from the child who was fully secured in the safety seat, both adults had their heads lolling, pressed against deployed, misshapen airbags, completely unresponsive. Unconscious? Or killed on impact? Fu Hang had no time to think. He yanked at the door with all his might, but it wouldn't move. Glancing at the thickening white smoke, Fu Hang gritted his teeth, clenched his right fist, and slammed it against the window. A dull thud echoed. Fu Hang's fist trembled slightly, but a flash of surprise crossed his eyes. It didn't break? How much force was behind that punch? It actually didn't break? Has the build quality of these Chinese-made NEVs really come this far? But the white smoke billowed, and he also smelled an acrid odor. He didn't understand the principles of new energy vehicles, but he'd seen in the news that once these cars caught fire, the flames were very difficult to extinguish. No time to think. Fu Hang pulled back his fist and struck again. Fortunately, his Grandmaster-level physique didn't let him down. On the 5th punch, the window finally shattered. Ignoring his arm, now cut by the glass, Fu Hang reached in, unlocked the door, pulled it open, and grabbed for the child, simultaneously checking on the 2 adults inside. Not dead, just unconscious. But Fu Hang's position was awkward. Because the vehicle was on its side, the window he'd broken faced upwards. From the driver's side where the child was, he couldn't reach the woman in the back seat at the same time. The acrid smell grew stronger. Fu Hang had no time to think. He picked up the child and jumped down from the median barrier. He looked up and met the eyes of Yuchu, who was just about to climb over the guardrail to help. Take the child and run. Keep going forward. Fu Hang dashed across the road and handed the crying child to Yuchu. Be careful. Yuchu's face was a mask of panic. She had originally wanted to help, but now, holding the child, she was at a complete loss. Fu Hang returned to the car, his expression growing grimmer. Just now, he thought he'd seen flames, but the car's position was terrible for a rescue. He squeezed through the open back door, but couldn't reach the adults inside unless he climbed onto the roof of the car and went in that way. But that would put him in danger too. Leaning halfway in, Fu Hang struggled to reach the seatbelt of the woman in the back, shouting loudly. He could see that the driver in the front was completely unconscious, but the woman in the back was still conscious, just days from the violent impact. The woman, groggy, seemed to hear Fu Hang's shouts and unbuckled her seatbelt. Fu Hang grabbed her hand and pulled her out of the car. They tumbled to the ground together. Fu Hang looked up. The flames were bigger now. Without hesitation, he scooped up the still-dazed woman in his arms and sprinted madly towards the other side of the road. Yuchu was still standing where he'd left her, holding the child. This time, she hadn't listened to Fu Hang. She just stood there numbly on the safe side of the median barrier. Stay here. Don't move. Fu Hang put the woman down, turned, and charged back towards the wrecked car. Fu Hang! Yuchu cried out, tears already welling in her eyes. Fu Hang looked back and saw her terrified eyes. He understood her gaze. Don't go. The fire was already raging. You've done enough. But Fu Hang paused for only a second before charging towards the wreck once more. However, just as he was about to climb again, fierce flames leaped out, and a scorching heat wave instantly barred his approach. Despair flashed in Fu Hang's eyes, the rage simmering in his chest threatening to tear him apart. So close. Just a little more. Fu Hang's gaze swept over the wrecked car, searching for a way to rescue the driver. Climbing was out of the question. The system had granted him an extraordinary body, with uncanny reflexes, explosive power, and control. But he wasn't Superman. He couldn't withstand such intense heat. The next moment, Fu Hang ducked under the median barrier and braced his shoulder against the rear of the car. Ark! A roar that seemed to rend the sky pierced the night. The vehicle rocked and slid off the barrier. True, he hadn't planned on lifting a car, but just pushing it off the barrier that he could manage. The car landed on its roof by the roadside, its undercarriage smoking. The flames, however, now licked upwards, at least buying the driver inside a few more precious seconds. The fire intensified. Fu Hang glanced through the open car door, his expression still grim. Even if he crawled inside, there was no way to pull the driver out from this angle. Crouching low, Fu Hang neared the driver's cabin. He tried to handle a few times, but the warped door wouldn't budge. Feeling the heat radiating from it, Fu Hang gritted his teeth and gripped the mangled door with both hands. Open! His voice thundered through the night again, the muscles in his arms bulging and straining. Suddenly, the resistance gave way. A flicker of delighted surprise lit Fu Hang's eyes. It opened, ignoring the wild flames. Fu Hang wrenched open the deformed door and reached for the driver. The seat belt was still buckled, and the twisted steering wheel pressed against the driver's chest, blocking Fu Hang's access. Damn it! Fu Hang slapped the driver and shouted, but there was no response. The fire grew fiercer. Fu Hang felt a stinging pain on his skin. The driver inside was already an unnatural, charred red. The seatbelt wouldn't release. There was no time. Fu Hang tugged at it desperately, but it held fast. Glass. The thought struck him instantly. He turned, looking for the rear window he had shattered earlier. But after grabbing a shard and trying on the seatbelt a few times, Fu Hang's heart sank. Reinforced safety glass. It wouldn't cut through. A rush of air, and a cloud of white gas sprayed towards Fu Hang. Dries? A fire extinguisher? Fu Hang turned to see a man aiming an extinguisher at him. The searing heat subsided slightly, but Fu Hang paid it no mind, frantically sawing at the seatbelt with a glass shard. He knew this small, vehicle-mounted dry ice extinguisher wouldn't put out a fire this size. He was still racing against the clock. Bro, it's a hybrid. This car's a hybrid. The man behind him with the extinguisher yelled, his voice laced with panic, having clearly noticed something. A hybrid? Fu Hang's heart leaped. He glanced at the car's dashboard. Sure enough, it was a gasoline-electric hybrid, which meant it had a fuel tank. The seatbelt was already half-cut. Give up? Fu Hang hesitated for a mere second. Then a look of grim resolve hardened his face. Everything the system had given him was definitely not for him to just be some pathetic bootlicker. Not for that child, not for this driver. It's gonna blow. The man behind him sounded even more frantic. Fu Hang could feel the dry ice spray moving away from him. A few seconds later, the extinguisher stopped. Fu Hang stared intently at the cut in the seatbelt. Almost. It was about to snap. He didn't look back, nor did he blame the man. This was clearly another passing driver. The fact that he'd rushed over to help at all was a kindness. He had no right to expect someone else to risk their life, as he did. The man retreated, clutching the extinguisher tightly. Just as Fu Hang thought, whether helping others out of goodwill or acting bravely for a just cause, one should always prioritize their own safety. He, too, had a family, loved ones waiting for him at home. The fire engulfing the wrecked car was massive, an explosion imminent. Staying here now, the man backed away quickly, his gaze fixed on the blazing vehicle with a conflicted expression. Suddenly, the extinguisher in his hand felt lighter. He turned in astonishment to see a flash of long hair, a slender figure snatching the extinguisher from him and rushing towards the inferno. The stinging pain on Fu Hang's face grew more intense. He could even feel his hair starting to burn. Just a little more. Just a bit. White dry ice sprayed over him again. Fu Hang was momentarily surprised, but didn't have time to turn, focusing all his effort on cutting the seatbelt. It snapped. Without a second thought, Fu Hang grabbed the driver, brutally yanked him out of the car, and as he hoisted him onto his shoulder and turned, he saw the graceful figure holding the extinguisher. Run! Fu Hang had no time for sentiment, only able to yell as he ran, carrying the driver. Boom! A deafening explosion erupted, the shockwave sending the three running figures flying. At Seoul's Second Hospital's emergency center, Fu Hang sat dazedly by a hospital bed, silently watching the woman lying on it, her eyes tightly closed. She slept peacefully, so peacefully that Fu Hang dare not breathe too loudly, afraid of disturbing her. He couldn't understand. In that situation, where had this seemingly gentle and frail woman found the courage to charge forward without hesitation when other rescuers were retreating? Who gave you that courage? Did you not value your life? Or, do you have a system too? Fu Hang's expression was complicated. It's dangerous, don't go. But if you go, I'll go with you. Yuchu was asleep, given a sedative by the doctor at Fu Hang's suggestion. Thankfully, her injuries weren't severe. Thrown by the shockwave, she had only scraped her arm upon landing. Whether her head had suffered any impact would require a more detailed examination, but the doctor judged it likely wasn't serious. As for Fu Hang, his head was shaved bald, his eyebrows were gone, and his bare scalp, though unbandaged, was slathered with ointment. His shiny bald head made him look decidedly thuggish, like a gang boss. Thanks to the omnipotent system, this freakish body of his actually came with fire resistance. The driver he'd rescued was still in critical condition from severe burns, yet Fu Hang had only lost his hair. However, his right hand was wrapped in thick bandages. That reinforced safety glass had been infuriatingly useless for cutting the seatbelt, but ruthlessly efficient at slicing through flesh. Gazing at her delicate, fair face for a while longer, Fu Hang suppressed some less than virtuous thoughts and quietly slipped out of the ward. Reaching the hospital stairwell, he stuck a cigarette in his mouth, furtively glancing around for any medical staff. But then he saw two men approaching him. One, in a police uniform, he recognized from when he'd first arrived at the hospital. "This is Mr. Fu," the policeman said with a grateful smile, introducing him to the man standing beside him. An old farmer, yes. Standing next to the policeman was an elderly man dressed like a farmer. He was in his 50s, with a hunched back, his face deeply weathered. He also seemed to have a limp, walking with an uneven gait. "You saved my granddaughter twice." The white-haired old farmer's lips trembled, his voice hoarse as he looked at Fu Hang. "Thank you." The old farmer lifted his right hand slightly, but the movement was small, and it quickly fell back to his side. He then gave Fu Hang a deep, earnest bow. "You're too kind, sir. Anyone would have done the same. The important thing is that the child is all right." Fu Hang smiled, but his eyes held a complex expression. What a twist of fate. The child he'd rescued from the car crash was the same kidnapped child who had fallen from the building that day. And the two adults in the car weren't the child's parents as Fu Hang had guessed, but police officers escorting her home. This family, the child was kidnapped, then fell from a building, rescued with great difficulty, only to get into a car accident on the way home. This kid is destined for great things when she grows up, Fu Hang mused silently. The old farmer straightened up, looked at Fu Hang earnestly once more, and, clearly a man of few words, pursed his lips and bowed again. Fu Hang quickly stopped him, feeling distinctly uncomfortable. "Are we getting married here?" Moreover, for some reason, he felt an unconscious resistance to the old man's profound gesture. Was it because of the man's identity? The almost imperceptible lift of the hand earlier hadn't escaped Fu Hang's notice. Was that an attempt to salute? A retired veteran? Or just wanted to shake hands? Fu Hang wondered about this because the old farmer gave him a strange feeling. Despite his very simple clothes, a somewhat dazed expression, cloudy eyes, and a limp, Fu Hang felt a sense of pressure when the man approached. Have they found the vehicle responsible? Fu Hang changed the subject. The old farmer's identity was none of his business. He'd saved the girl purely on instinct. All he sought was peace of mind. But the black car that had hit them and hadn't even slowed down, that infuriated him. "We're already investigating that," the accompanying police officer replied politely, slightly taken aback and instinctively glancing at the old farmer. "You have to catch that bastard," Fu Hang said fiercely. "Mr. Fu, your girlfriend is awake," a nurse suddenly called from the hallway. "Then I won't disturb you any longer, Mr. Fu," the old farmer said earnestly, looking like he was about to bow again. Fu Hang quickly grasped the man's hand and gave it a firm shake. As they passed each other, Fu Hang frowned slightly. The man's palm was powerful, covered in calluses, and in that instant of the handshake, the feeling of pressure intensified. A strange thought suddenly flashed through Fu Hang's mind. This man has taken lives, and more than one. With this doubt, Fu Hang hurried towards Yuchu's hospital room. In the hallway, the old man turned sideways, quietly watching Fu Hang's retreating figure until he disappeared. "Mr. Duan. Just call me old Duan. You've been traveling all day. Would you like to rest first? The child has doctors looking after her, and our people are keeping an eye on things too." "Is Chen Xiao here?" The old farmer's voice was calm. "Chief Chun should be downstairs," the police officer replied politely. "Please take me to him." The old farmer slowly raised his head, his stooped back gradually straightening. The cloudiness in his eyes faded, replaced by an icy chill. "I'm sorry." The head of the Hanqiang police force, upon first seeing the old farmer, had a resolute face filled with self-reproach. This isn't on you. You should know their motives. The old farmer's tone was flat, betraying no emotion. Don't worry, we'll definitely assign more manpower next. Deliver a message for me. The old farmer cut him off, his emotionless gaze slowly lifting. I want to be reinstated. Old Duan, Shen Xiao's face was full of astonishment. Just 3 hours ago, they found my daughter and son-in-law in a river at the border. The old farmer's voice grew even colder. Shen Xiao's eyes widened, his disbelieving gaze filled with shock and unbearable pity. He hadn't received this news yet. The higher-ups won't allow you to be reinstated while you're this emotional. After a long silence, Shen Xiao spoke. Whether they agree or not is their business. Just relay my message. The old farmer slowly turned and walked towards the hospital interior. Shen Xiao opened his mouth but couldn't say anything, only self-reproach in his eyes. After a long while, he made a call. What's the situation? Even late at night, the call was answered instantly. Old Duan has arrived. The child is fine. Wang Yi, who was escorting her, suffered extensive burns and isn't out of danger yet. Zhang Yu is mostly unharmed, just a slight concussion. What about the car? It had fake plates and was a stolen vehicle. The owner has already reported it. It exited the highway at the next junction after the incident and was abandoned by the roadside. The driver wore a mask the whole time. Facial recognition hasn't yielded any results yet. Full-scale search. Yes, sir. I definitely won't let them get away. However, Old Duan is requesting reinstatement. I know, Captain. Shen Xiao's tone changed. It was strange. The head of the Hanqiang branch office was addressing his superior on the phone as Captain. The other end of the line fell silent. He has dedicated 20 years to this country, Shen Xiao said in a low, yet very agitated voice. You know about his daughter and son-in-law? The voice on the other end asked calmly after a long silence. Shen Xiao's lips trembled, unable to speak. So, I have no reason to stop him. Where exactly did the information leak from? Old Duan's identity couldn't have been exposed. Only a handful of people know he's still alive. It probably wasn't a leak. There's been a power shift in the Golden Triangle recently, and someone is stirring up old matters. All right, this isn't something you can handle right now. Take care of the child and find that driver. The call ended. Shen Xiao stared at the towering hospital building, speechless. Limping Old Duan didn't take the elevator, instead hobbling his way up to the 5th floor. His only living relative, his only granddaughter, was on this floor. The child was lucky. The car seat had protected her well, but she was quite frightened. At the door of the ward, Old Duan unexpectedly saw a female patient clutching her stomach. Uncle Duan. The girl's expression was complicated when she saw Old Duan. I heard you caught the traffickers who kidnapped Minmin. Old Duan clearly knew this girl. The iciness in his eyes receded slightly. It was what I should have done. Ying Yanin was very embarrassed. She caught them? She had merely recognized them and had almost died in the line of duty. That man had caught both criminals. But there were orders from the Bureau not to reveal Fu Hang's involvement. Not even Uncle Duan, right? Thank you. That bullet you took, consider taken for me. Tell your father he doesn't owe me anymore. Old Duan said this, then ignored Ying Yanin and pushed open the door to the hospital room. Ying Yanin's expression grew even more complex, a mix of joy, embarrassment, and a touch of alarm. Joy because she had received Uncle Duan's acknowledgement. Embarrassment because the credit wasn't hers. As for the alarm, what did he mean? Her father didn't know him anymore. He had saved her father's life. Ying Yanin walked back to her hospital room, her heart heavy with anxiety, still hesitating whether to tell her father. But when she arrived, she saw her chief, standing stone-faced by her bed. How do you know Duan Changfeng? Shen Xiao's voice was exceptionally cold. When I graduated, my dad took me to meet him. Ying Yanin forced a smile, not daring to hide anything. Your father has violated regulations. From this day forward, forget Duan Changfeng. You shouldn't know him, understand? Shen Xiao's expression was grim. As for your father, someone will ensure he's brought to justice. Shen Xiao slammed the door and left. Fu Hang went downstairs to buy some food. When he returned, his brow was furrowed even deeper. In the middle of the night, the hospital had suddenly filled with many suspicious-looking individuals, and they gave him a strange feeling. Had some important personage arrived at the hospital? But the moment he pushed open the door to the room and saw Qin Yuchu, Fu Hang cast aside all other thoughts. Right now, no VIP was more important than Yuchu. Fu Hang stayed at the hospital for 2 days, mainly to ensure Qin Yuchu was all right. During this time, that strange feeling grew stronger. Someone truly significant had come to the hospital, especially to the inpatient department. Moreover, the official attitude towards his heroic act was also off. There was no shortage of gratitude and expressions of sympathy, but beyond that, nothing. Even in subsequent news reports, there is only a brief mention of a car accident on a certain road section and an enthusiastic citizen assisting with the rescue. Fu Hang guessed the authorities hadn't forgotten his earlier request. He didn't like being in the limelight. On the third day, after a thorough checkup confirmed Yuchu was fine, Fu Hang completed the discharge procedures. But as he was leaving the hospital, he encountered that old farmer again in the hallway. Fu Hang stared in astonishment at the old man standing by the stairwell, clearly waiting for him. If not for the limp, Fu Hang would have doubted his own eyes. The old man had shed his simple jacket and rubber-soled shoes. He was now wearing a leather overcoat, a soft silk scarf tied around his neck, and his leather shoes gleamed brightly. His salt and pepper hair was meticulously combed back. Holy crap! Play me like this, huh? Fu Hang twitched his lips and glanced at the two men behind the old man. These two were different from the smiling policemen from the other day. They were strong and imposing, burly figures with fierce eyes, the kind who, after a bellowed, "What are you looking at?" would charge forward with a bottle in hand. Let us reintroduce ourselves. Duan Changfeng. The old man smiled and took a step forward, his previously murky eyes now glinting with profundity. Quite a change, old sir. Fu Hang didn't shake his hand, instead pulling Yuchu behind him. The oppressive aura had lessened considerably, but this new demeanor made Fu Hang very uncomfortable. Had I misjudged him? You saved my Minmin's life twice. I can grant you 2 wishes. Duan Changfeng wasn't embarrassed, smiling as he withdrew his outstretched hand. I only have 1 wish. Look after your child and don't lose her again. Fu Hang gave him a serious look, then took Yuchu's hand and turned to leave. Seeing the man's posture and entourage, he thought he'd figured something out. Rich family feuds? Underworld vendettas? What a pain. Fu Hang instantly lost all interest. Duan Changfeng, will remember this kindness, the old man said, unconcerned, standing steadily. He didn't turn his head, even as Fu Hang walked past him. Yuchu, however, glanced back at Duan Changfeng in confusion as they passed. She had an indescribable feeling about this old man named Duan Changfeng. Familiar? Fu Hang, as he left, was unaware that after this old man departed the hospital, that very night, the boss of the southern gambling city's largest underground force, the Three-Legged Gang, died suddenly of a heart attack. A man who should have died in the Golden Triangle 6 years ago had reappeared silently, taking over the Three-Legged Gang with overwhelming force and brutal methods. Strangely, despite such a major upheaval, both the authorities and the underworld in the gambling city remained collectively silent, as if tacitly accepting the outcome. Of course, a change in leadership for the Three-Legged Gang wasn't a monumental event in itself. But when this news reached the Golden Triangle, it caused a massive uproar, especially within the Golden Triangle's Lotus Society, which had also recently changed leaders. Not long before, the new boss of the Lotus Society had killed many people, citing an old affair. Anyone with discerning eyes knew it was his way of eliminating rivals. But coincidentally, the person involved in that old affair was none other than the bloody hand cripple who had just resurfaced in the gambling city, Duan Changfeng. Indeed, the unfolding events did not disappoint anyone who still remembered the bloody hand cripple. He was back, and the man who returned was still the same man. The new Lotus Society was almost entirely wiped out overnight. Their new boss had his limbs severed and was hung at the entrance of his newly bought villa. The Huagua Three-Legged Gang had officially established its presence in the Golden Triangle. Of course, these matters were far removed from Fu Hang, who was currently driving Yuchu home. He found himself frequently distracted while driving. Counting the days in the hospital and his previous absences, he hadn't been to work for several days. Yet, his salary had been paid as usual, and the affection levels. Shen Qingluan, 74%, Li Weiyang, 69, 18%. The most exaggerated was Ying Yanan, whose affection had surged to 53, 71%. We haven't even met, have we? What did I even do? Of course, Fu Hang quickly figured out the reason. The young policewoman's affection had probably skyrocketed because he had saved 2 more police officers. That fiery girl's temperament was likely just like that. What are you looking at? Fu Hang noticed from the corner of his eye that Yuchu was staring intently at him. The thought that he might have to escort her upstairs soon made him feel restless. I suddenly realized you look a lot like him. Yuchu's eyes widened as she finally understood where that sense of familiarity with the old man at the hospital came from. He looked very similar to Fu Hang, especially his profile. Like who? Fu Hang turned his head, puzzled. No one. Yuchu faltered, remembering Fu Hang's earlier attitude towards the old man, and awkwardly shut her mouth. That old man didn't seem like a good person. It was better not to mention him. She didn't want Fu Hang to get involved with such a character. The car soon arrived at Yuchu's residential complex and parked in an assigned spot. Fu Hang was just about to get out. You should head back early. I can manage these few things myself, Yuchu said, her head lowered, picking up her personal bag. Fu Hang's hand, reaching for the door handle, paused. This was the first time Yuchu had refused him, even though he hadn't even said he would walk her upstairs. Rest well. After all, you were injured too. Before Fu Hang could reply, Yuchu grabbed her bag and hurried towards the building entrance. Fu Hang's expression was complicated, a sudden emptiness settling in his heart. He didn't drive off. Instead, he locked the car and walked out of the complex on foot. As he passed the security booth, his gaze was inexplicably drawn to the fire extinguisher hanging on the wall. As if to prove a point, Fu Hang truly let himself go. He returned to Yuchu 1 and completely cut loose. For an entire week, he didn't step out of his room. His work phone remained off. All told, he'd been absent from work for 10 consecutive days. Surprisingly, his salary still arrived daily. A full 400,000, not even missing the portion for Yanan, a woman he'd only met twice. So he'd been wrong? Simps don't need to clock in every day. Fu Hang didn't ask the system why. If it were you, after skipping work for 10 days straight and finding your boss still paying you, would you ask why? On the 11th day, Fu Hang finally started to feel uneasy. Shen Qingluan's affection level had dropped to 69, 97%, below the 70% threshold. Every client reaching 70% for the first time came with an extra performance bonus. Fu Hang felt he needed to play it safe. He couldn't keep slacking off. Of course, he didn't just go straight to simping like before. He turned on his work phone and checked for unread messages. However, to his surprise, there were no unread messages. None from Shen Qingluan, none from Li Weiyang either. What the hell? Is my phone broken? That was Fu Hang's first reaction. He could somewhat understand not hearing from Shen Qingluan. After all, he was theoretically still hospitalized. Orthopedics, but Li Weiyang hadn't contacted him either. Weren't her affection levels still steadily rising? Though not by much, it had reached 71, 1%, a full 2-point increase in 10 days. If she weren't a repeat client, he could have gotten a performance bonus for that. Fu Hang started browsing their social media feeds. Everything seemed normal. Shen Qingluan posted about work every day, looking fulfilled. Li Weiyang was still living comfortably, either at the gym or having afternoon tea, occasionally shopping. Fu Hang licked his lips, growing increasingly restless. He changed his clothes and went to the garage. There were 2 cars there, a GT900 and a second-hand EV. He grimaced. He didn't want to drive either of them. The GT900 was too flashy, too risky, but the used EV seemed pretty risky too. The accident that day had left him with some trauma. Should he take the ADQ7 or buy a new one? Speaking of which, had Yuchu gotten her driver's license yet? Lost in thought, Fu Hang scanned a shared bike at the community entrance and headed towards Century Plaza. No rush. First, let myself try to rejoin society, strive to work hard, and be a decent person. But when he saw the long queue outside Ganlu milk tea, he completely lost his cool. What on earth had I missed? Wasn't it limited edition? Why were so many people still queuing? Fu Hang practically jogged into the milk tea shop. It was the same inside. The limited booth seats were filled with men and women, all dressed to the nines, some looking sharp, others flamboyant. Most of the staff were new faces, making Fu Hang wonder if he'd walked into the wrong place. Looking up, the curtain was gone, replaced by a large advertisement. We craft every cup of milk tea with heart. The staircase had also been rearranged, brightly lit and looking like a small stage. The area at the top, however, now had an extra door, as Fu Hang had requested. Fu Hang then looked at the staff behind the counter, making milk tea. Every movement was meticulous and precise. And, just as Fu Hang had arranged, after completing each step, they would tap a timer in front of them, maxing out the cool factor. It was quite pleasing to watch. "Hello, your water, sir." A server approached with a tray and handed Fu Hang a glass of lemon water. It was a new face. Fu Hang didn't recognize them. But Fu Hang quickly noticed that everyone in the queue was holding a glass of lemon water. And after giving Fu Hang the water, this server actually carried the tray full of water glasses out the door. They're given out outside, too. Whose idea was this? We're selling milk tea. Is this even necessary? Boss, you're here. Xia Xiaofeng popped his head out from behind the counter. His face lit up with pleasant surprise. Fu Hang looked at him with a very complicated expression, trying to read something in his eyes. You came up with this? Fu Hang asked, holding up the glass of water. He remembered now. He'd made this guy the manager. Xia Xiaofeng scratched his head sheepishly, but his face practically screamed, Praise me! Praise me! Why doesn't he have one? Fu Hang's expression darkened. Still feeling smug, are we? He pointed to a man about sixth in line. I've already had mine, the man said familiarly, explaining for Xia Xiaofeng before he could speak. Fu Hang raised an eyebrow, looking suspiciously at the man. Your friend? Fu Hang tilted his head. Sort of, I guess. Xia Xiaofeng hesitated, stammering. What's going on? Fu Hang caught Xia Xiaofeng's odd behavior. He's in the shop almost every day, so yeah, we're kind of friends. You're hiring people to queue? Fu Hang seemed to understand something. No, he's a scalper. Xia Xiaofeng quickly explained. A scalper? Fu Hang was shocked. Seriously? Aren't we selling limited quantities? Many people can't buy it. So where there's demand, there's a market, Xia Xiaofeng explained earnestly. 150 cups. Fu Hang probed. Of course. Boss, you're a genius. The previous owner came by a few days ago and sat in the shop, sighing for a long time. Recalling that afternoon, Xia Xiaofeng chuckled happily. Fu Hang snorted, hot air flaring his nostrils. He scanned the orderly queue of customers, feeling a stifling frustration, like something caught in his throat he couldn't cough up or swallow. His breathing felt heavy. Boss, here the account for the past few days. Seeing Fu Hang frowning, Xia Xiaofeng had a sudden realization and quickly presented the meticulously organized accounts. This was his record of achievements. Fu Hang took them and examined them carefully. The bookkeeping was impeccable. Looked like the kid was a whiz with office software. But these numbers. Fu Hang looked at the daily revenue and quickly calculated in his head, after deducting costs for utilities and labor. Are all capitalists this ruthless? Such a large milk tea shop, with so many employees, selling only 150 cups a day. And it was still profitable? It's hard to make money these days, but is it this hard to lose money too? Looking at the expectant Xia Xiaofeng, Fu Hang suddenly straightened up and patted his shoulder firmly twice. You've done very well. You haven't disappointed me. When you have time the next few days, go scout some locations. We're going to open a branch. I refuse to believe every single branch can be profitable. First, I need to spend the money we've earned these past few days, or by the end of the month, the profits will have to be transferred to Shen Qingluan. Xia Xiaofeng trembled all over upon hearing this. Open a branch? Am I going to follow the boss to greater success and glory? Fu Hang paid him no more mind, turning to go upstairs to lie down and cool off for a bit. But just as he turned, Xia Xiaofeng tugged at the corner of his shirt. Fu Hang didn't understand, but then he met Xia Xiaofeng's suggestive gaze. Someone's upstairs? Yuchu is here for her afternoon nap again, but it's only 10 in the morning. Fu Hang was both surprised and delighted, quickly hurrying up the stairs. To be honest, he had been somewhat avoiding Qin Yuchu these past few days. The memory of being thrown by the blast wave was too heavy. He couldn't bear it. The thought of Yuchu upstairs sent a sudden thrill through him. Thump, thump, thump. He hurried up the stairs and pushed open the simple sliding door. Fu Hang's expression froze. Indeed, a woman was lying sideways on the bed, alluring and seductive. Her waist-to-hip ratio, in particular, was unlike anything he'd ever seen. In Fu Hang's memory, the only one with such a figure was Li Weiyong, the young heiress who didn't need to work and spent her days at the gym. Li Weiyong lay on her side, holding a thick file, and watched Fu Hang with a meaningful gaze. Her eyes shimmered with complicated feelings. What are you doing here? Fu Hang, startled, hesitated at the doorway, somewhat reluctant to enter. It's too crowded downstairs, no space. You don't mind if I lie here for a bit, do you? Li Weiyong tilted her head, showing no intention of getting up. Fu Hang felt a bit flustered. After a moment's hesitation, he walked into the attic and closed the door behind him. She's a client, Fu Hang reminded himself. The system had already been merciful by not penalizing his absenteeism. If he ran into a client and still tried to avoid them, the system might really dish out some trouble. But now that he was inside, Fu Hang was in a bind. There was only one bed in the room. Where was he supposed to sit? Did you make this? Seeing Fu Hang close the door, Li Weiyong smiled, her eyes sparkling as she held up the file she'd been reading. What? Fu Heng didn't understand and instinctively reached for the file. But Li Weiyong snatched it back, hiding it behind her. I want it. With that, she sat cross-legged and spoke with conviction. In? In on what? Lady, do you even see what you're doing? You're wearing a short skirt. Fu Heng averted his gaze, licked his lips, and sat down on the edge of the bed, facing the same direction as her. It felt less intense than facing her directly, even though, for the season, she was wearing tights under her skirt. But still, visually, it was just one of those strange things. At a swimming pool, no one would bat an eye, but if a gust of wind on the street revealed the same view, it could cause a few electric scooter accidents. It was the same thing, yet the impact was so different. Hey, you're not going to refuse, are you? Better to work with someone you know. You need partners anyway, so why give the opportunity to someone else instead of me? Fu Heng's brow twitched. What on earth are you talking about? Is this payback for skipping work? A few days off, and I'm already rusty with business jargon. I can't get on her wavelength at all. He'd only caught a few words with potential double meanings. Do in benefit me. Are all divorced women this forward? Don't worry, I'll pay market rate. Whatever you expect from others, I'll match. Strictly business. I've been thinking about finding something to do lately. This is perfect, like investing in my own venture. Fu Heng kept his head down, but his peripheral vision unfortunately caught a glimpse of that unguarded zone. He cursed inwardly. You really play dirty, using tactics like this to mess with my head right now. They say even if a deal falls through, goodwill remains. We may not have ended up together, but that doesn't stop us from doing business, right? Or are you saying we can't even be friends? Li Weiyong's tone suddenly softened. She drew her crossed legs together and hugged her knees. That's not what I meant, Fu Heng quickly explained, almost out of professional habit. Heavens, this pose is even more potent than before. All right, it's settled then. I'll have someone evaluate it, and I'll get back to you. Li Weiyong suddenly beamed, uncurled her legs from the bed, slipped on her shoes, and headed for the door. Wait, what on earth are you talking about? Fu Heng watched her shapely, retreating figure, speechless. Were you deliberately pretending to be clueless to trick me before? Reaching the door, Li Weiyong suddenly turned her head and looked at Fu Heng very seriously. Fu Heng froze. She knows? I had my reasons, it was for work. Li Weiyong wrinkled her nose, gave a soft snort, and turned to go downstairs. From upstairs, he could hear that her footsteps, as she descended, sounded distinctly cheerful. Fu Heng gaped, feeling a lump form in his throat. He'd understood her last glance. It was an affection level +1, +1, +1 kind of look. What did I even do? Fu Heng looked down and noticed a torn delivery package by the bed. He picked it up suspiciously and saw a blurry shipping label. My delivery? Since when did I have a delivery? Trying to reconstruct the package's shape, Fu Heng frowned. About A4 size. A document? A book? A flicker in his eyes, he grabbed the packaging and ran downstairs. Li Weiyong was already gone. He immediately called over Xiaofeng. What's this? Oh, your delivery. It arrived 3 days ago. I couldn't reach you, so I put upstairs. But the packaging was already damaged when it arrived. I didn't look inside, Xiaofeng quickly explained. Arrived 3 days ago? When did she get here? Fu Heng thought he was piecing things together. She's been here a little while. Asked if you were in, then went straight upstairs. And before, she's been coming by almost every day, but this was her first time going upstairs. Xiaofeng sensed Fu Heng's displeasure. The bed upstairs. It's not like it's reserved for him, is it? He never said anything. All right, get back to work. Fu Heng turned and went back upstairs. His thoughts cleared. What Li Weiyong held must have been this delivery, and Li Weiyong wouldn't have opened it. The young heiress had at least that much integrity. So, because the package was damaged, Li Weiyong must have assumed it was already opened and casually picked it up. But what was it exactly? Who sent it to him? Fu Heng carefully tried to make out the sender's information, only to discover, to his dismay, that it was blank. Partner up? Invest. And she said, I was pretending to be clueless to trick me before? Her affection level is finally at 71%. Don't go causing more trouble for me. This sudden turn of events unsettled Fu Heng, making him abandon the idea of looking for Shen Qingluan. Anyway, his phone was on. If she needed him, she could just call. He'd be at her beck and call. Yuchu, on the other hand, had unexpectedly sent a text around noon, asking if he wanted to have lunch together. After nearly a week of silence, this was the first time Yuchu had contacted him. But Fu Heng was in no mood for a meal right now, especially not with Yuchu. Fu Heng switched to work mode, exchanged a few vague texts with Yuchu, and managed to politely brush her off. He ate a bowl of knife-cut noodles in the attic. Fu Heng had a vague suspicion. A business plan? On the day he rescued Yanan, He seemed to have received a notification about something like this, but he'd never seen the actual item and had almost forgotten about it. The system gave him too much miscellaneous junk, much of which was useless. System? What about that business plan you mentioned? Reward has been issued. Please check for receipt. Fu Heng looked up. No doubt about it. When the GT900 had arrived, it had also been parked in the garage for a month without any notification. It was only when he tried to touch the car door and the cool headlights flipped up that he realized the car was his. Who could he even complain to? The system didn't care about formalities like personal signatures upon receipt. What's inside it? Fu Heng asked, not giving up, though he knew it was likely pointless. Yep, as expected, the system ignored him. Fu Heng was anxious. Discovering that the item Li Weiyong had taken was a system product made him even more so. Li Weiyong was considerate. She didn't keep Fu Heng on edge for long. She'd said she'd get back to him, and sure enough, her call came at 2 in the afternoon. Hearing Fu Heng was still at the milk tea shop, she immediately arranged to meet him at a coffee shop across the street. After all, this was serious business. The milk tea shop was too crowded in public and the loft. While discussing things in bed seemed a bit odd. Fu Heng was eager after the call. He waited less than 20 minutes before Li Weiyong pushed open the door, a middle-aged man in a sharp suit following behind her. This is my lawyer. Li Weiyong was radiating confidence. She didn't introduce Fu Heng, nor did she even give the lawyer's name. She smoothed her skirt and sat down directly opposite Fu Heng, all business. Hello, President Fu. The lawyer, at least, was proper, shaking Fu Heng's hand. Being called President Fu to his face for the first time made Fu Heng a little uncomfortable. I'll cut to the chase. I'm willing to offer 30 million. Li Weiyong didn't even order a drink, getting straight to it the moment she sat down. Fu Heng's lips twitched. He turned his head to look out the window. The seat was well chosen. Through the glass, he could see the maddeningly long queue across the street. 30 million right off the bat? What are you trying to buy? Me? Is 30 million for a year or by the month? If it's per session, that's a bit steep. Or maybe I should just go along with it? 30 million. That's the absolute most I can offer. I want a 30% stake. Seeing Fu Heng silent, Li Weiyong took a deep breath and added seriously. 30 million for a 30% stake? What are you buying? Yuan trading? You know about it. Fu Heng picked up his coffee, a faint smile playing on his lips. By Yuan trading? You're dreaming. That's my wife's. Cough, cough. My nest egg. If I lose my job, that's what I'm counting on for retirement. Li Weiyong caught his smile, and her heart tightened. Fu Heng, I know 30 million might not meet your expectations, but to be honest, this is everything I have. I even had a plan on mortgaging my house to raise it. Li Weiyong's imposing aura suddenly deflated. Fu Heng sipped his coffee quietly. Sorry, Yuan is absolutely not for sale. Then, 25%. In your business plan, the first phase expenses are around that much, right? Li Weiyong suddenly pouted, deflated. I know I underestimated you before, but that was only because you were deliberately playing dumb in front of me. Honestly, a few days ago, I really didn't understand your methods. Going to all that trouble to drive traffic with gimmicks, only to suddenly introduce limited editions just as you were gaining popularity. It might maintain the hype, but wouldn't it significantly impact profits? But who knew that whole marketing campaign was just your appetizer? And this is the main course, Li Weiyong said, huffing slightly as she pulled the business plan from her bag. Yet, her eyes, when she looked at Fu Heng, sparkled with admiration. Fu Heng was stunned. Drive traffic? Limited editions? He couldn't help but look back at the milk tea shop across the street. You're not talking about this, are you? You're not spending 30 million to buy Yuan trading? You want to buy the milk tea shop? For a 30% stake? Are you crazy? Even if you're rich, you don't just throw money away like that. Or, is this 30 million from your divorce settlement? Are you trying to give it to me this way? To keep me? You really don't have to. This kind of sponsorship won't put money in my pocket. It'll just strengthen your competitor. You're funding the enemy, sis. 1,000 thoughts raced through Fu Heng's mind, but his face remained impassive. He silently reached out and picked up the business plan from the table. What kind of spell did the system put in this thing? To make a well-educated young lady so utterly smitten? And this lawyer she brought is useless. He doesn't even know to step in. Putting on a profound air, Fu Heng casually flipped through the plan. And then, what the hell? It really is a spell? Can you believe it's all in English? Are you trying to bully me because I can barely read English? Fu Heng skipped to the end, not finding a single Chinese character. Forcing down the urge to rip the plan to shreds, he gently placed it back on the table. What do you think? Fu Heng offered a gentle smile. So, not Yuan trading? Then there's room for discussion. Though handling this 30 million might be tricky with Shen Qingluan, but you're both clients, and my specialty is treating everyone fairly, spreading the love, right? I'm very confident. You're the most brilliant marketer I've ever seen. I can't even imagine how you came up with these ideas. Li Weiyang's eyes were full of stars, prompting the lawyer who had come to negotiate with her to discreetly kick her foot onto the table. You laid all your cards on the table right at the start, and now you're gushing over his project like this? It'll be a miracle if he doesn't hike up the price. Who negotiates like this? The boss was right not to let the young lady back into the company. Just like the rumors said, she's a complete love-struck fool. That's not what I'm asking. I mean, if you invest, what are your plans moving forward? Fu Hang's voice was gentle, as if he were testing her. I can't make heads or tails of this thing, but you seem to understand it. So lay it out for me. First, open new branches. I heard you this morning telling Xiaoxia to look for new store locations. If I invest, I'm confident I can secure a spot on the ground floor of Baidao Plaza. Shijie Street wouldn't be a problem either. We could even move forward with both simultaneously. Li Weiyang keenly sensed a shift in Fu Hang's attitude. Is he agreeing? And then, Fu Hang continued to smile, an approving sort of smile. But internally, several holy shits had already escaped him. The ground floor of Baidao Plaza? That's prime luxury retail space. Shijie Street? The busiest area in Hanqing for foot traffic? And then, actually, we just need to follow your plan and arrangement step by step. Stick to the current operating model. Continuously market to expand brand influence. And after a second and third round of funding, we can definitely have over 300 stores and a market cap of 2 billion within 3 years. Fu Hang nearly choked on phlegm he felt had been brewing for 20 years. Over 300 stores in 3 years? A market cap of 2 billion? System, what kind of outrageous crap did you spin? Yuanwood trading is worth peanuts compared to that. Fu Hang turned his head again to look at the milk tea shop. How much did it cost to set it up in the first place? Seeing Fu Hang's serious expression, Li Weiyang stopped talking. She peeked at the lawyer who had been kicking her, then silently lowered her head. Only then did she remember she hadn't ordered coffee, and the well-behaved waiter was standing at a distance, quietly holding a menu. Beckoning the waiter over, she ordered coffee for herself and her lawyer. Then Li Weiyang waited quietly. Fu Hang took off his cap, instinctively running a hand over his newly cropped hair. Li Weiyang's eyes widened. She just realized Fu Hang, who had been wearing a cap all day, had a new haircut. And, wow, it actually looks pretty good. Quite stylish, wouldn't you say? So, he's finally dropped the loser act? Wait, his eyebrows. They're groomed too? No. Are they drawn on? Li Weiyang was once again stunned by Fu Hang's transformation. Why did he pretend to be like that in front of me before? If I had known you were like this. Li Weiyang narrowed her eyes, a hint of resentful longing surfacing. Fu Hang held his coffee cup, his gaze fixed on the swirling liquid, his expression focused and serene. System? Number 3 wants to acquire number 1's business. What now? A playful thought crossed Fu Hang's mind. You set me up? Let's see how you handle this. Legitimate business transaction. The system replied instantly. Fu Hang paused, the spectacle he'd hoped for unrealized. Instead, he'd been outmaneuvered again. He suddenly realized that with something system produced, no matter how absurd, anything was possible. Could you believe someone actually had fire resistance? This thing might actually churn out 2 billion in 3 years. And then this 2 billion goes to Shen Qingluan? It wasn't that Fu Hang was reluctant to part with it. It wasn't his money anyway. 2 billion or 20 bucks, it made no difference to him. If he protected his own base, he could make 2 billion himself. The key issue was if his 2 billion was given away, he wouldn't be able to hold on to his base, would he? Besides, looking at Li Weiyang's state, she's already fallen for it, hasn't she? How high will her affection score be at today's settlement? And then, if Shen Qingluan's stats explode, am I supposed to go suck up to that tigress? Can that stubborn tigress even be flattered? It's already 53, 71% after just 2 meetings, and I haven't even started sucking up yet. That girl, she's easy to sweet-talk, but hard to truly fool. She's the type to charge forward even with a gun to her head, to threaten and provoke agitated criminals in a crisis. Anyone with half a brain wouldn't do that, right? No, that wasn't right. Shen Qingluan should be safe for now. From Li Weiyang's description, it sounded like the plan was aggressive marketing and expansion, then inflating the market value to cash out. Fu Hang didn't know much about finance, but he had a basic grasp of common sense. So, even if it made money, the returns wouldn't be seen for at least 3 years, and those 3 years would be a phase of continuous heavy investment. Besides, Shen Qingluan didn't know the milk tea shop was his, which offered a lot of room to maneuver. As long as his CEO cover wasn't blown. All right, 30 million it is. Fu Hang sipped his coffee, his gaze softening. Hearing this, Li Weiyang's heart leaped with joy, her eyes curving into delicate crescents. I'll give you 50% equity, Fu Hang continued, before she could get too excited. The beautiful crescents instantly widened into full moons. The lawyer beside her, who was taking a sip of water, wasn't quite as composed and choked. He looked up in astonishment, not at Fu Hang, but at his own young miss in disbelief. This old retainer must be a fool. I still haven't figured out the young Mrs. negotiation tactics. She quoted 30 million for 30%, then undercut herself down to 25%, and now the other party actually raised it to 50%? What kind of negotiation strategy is this? Fu Hang, Li Weiyang remained stunned for a moment, still processing. But I have conditions, Fu Hang said, raising a hand to cut her off. Li Weiyang immediately sat up straight, attentively waiting for what came next. As long as it wasn't too outrageous, she had no reason to refuse. The lawyer beside her felt the same, even if the condition was for the young miss to ahem. Warm as bed. Looking at the young miss, it probably wouldn't be a bad deal for her, right? The condition is, you will be responsible for this project from now on. You will take the lead. Profit or loss, I won't interfere. You've seen the business plan. Whether you follow it to the letter or forge your own path, you'll bear the consequences. Fu Hang leaned back slightly, looking calmly at Li Weiyang. In an instant, Li Weiyang felt her eyes redden, grow warm, then hot, as if they were glowing. She understood in a flash. Just because she'd said, it'd be nice to have a business of my own, he was handing over such a project to her? Giving her full responsibility? Was this trust? Or care? What happened to business is business? Don't you dare accept? Fu Hang asked, his voice even gentler as he saw her redden eyes. You're determined to make this blow up big anyway, so I might as well push it to the limit. Settle it once and for all, get the reward, and then I could go take care of Shen Qingluan in peace. Why wouldn't I dare? With this business plan, even a pig could make it work. Li Weiyang's voice was choked with emotion, an unspeakable gratitude lacing her tone. Such a clumsy attempt at goading me. Hasn't anyone ever told you you're a terrible actor? You were then, and you still are now. Tears welled in Li Weiyang's eyes as a flood of thoughts overwhelmed her. This man, while showering her with unconditional care, was also considering her feelings and dignity. He made it sound like he wanted to be a hands-off boss, but in reality, he had seen her yearning for a career, her dejection and confusion after a failed marriage. None of it must have escaped his notice, right? This business plan, a stroke of genius, must have been painstakingly written by him, yet he was handing it to her in such a way, with such a tone. Fu Hang, thank you, but you really don't have to do this. I've read the business plan. I know your strategy and layout. To fully achieve its goals, significant initial investment is necessary. 25% is enough for me. If you don't have other suitable partners, I can use my family connections to find a few more for you. That other 25% can go to them. They'll definitely be reliable partners. Li Weiyang took a deep breath, fighting back the surging tears. She was deeply moved, but at the same time, she forced herself to be rational. This man had already given her his all. She couldn't betray that trust. 30 million wouldn't be enough to last until the second round of funding. If he gave her 50% of the shares, it meant Fu Hang would have to sell even more to others. This project was destined to be a textbook case. Its wildly imaginative methods could only be described as miraculous. She didn't want Fu Hang's hard work to end up benefiting someone else. The lawyer beside them opened his mouth, but said nothing. He really wanted to stop the young miss. Why spit out the meat already in her mouth? Who cares who gets it? If there's not enough money, just ask your family for it, right? Wouldn't it be better to take that 50% too? Worried about the money? Fu Hang smiled again. 30 million definitely won't be enough. Then I'll invest another 50 million. Fu Hang put down his coffee cup, folded his hands, and looked at her quietly. System? Transfer the funds. Li Weiyang's expression froze again, as did the lawyer's beside her. But the lawyer had learned his lesson this time. He wasn't drinking water when Fu Hang spoke. He was utterly in awe of his young miss. Who said she was just some love-struck fool? With just this one project, forget the young master, even the old master himself couldn't have pulled this off, right? I don't understand what you mean. Li Weiyang was completely baffled. Do you understand? Fu Hang turned to the lawyer. Mr. Fu means, the lawyer began, affecting an air of scholarly composure, that he will first inject an additional 50 million and then sell you 50% of the shares for 30 million. Bloody hell, I get it now. This isn't business, is it? This is goddamn romance. What he's giving her aren't shares. That's practically a bride price. However, there's an issue. Regarding the financing process, if you invest an additional $50 million and then transfer 50% of the shares for $30 million, it could create complications and affect future funding rounds, the lawyer added, having grasped the key point and regained his composure. Can it be resolved? Fu Hang raised an eyebrow. It's a bit tricky, but yes. Fu Hang smiled. These lawyers could be quite professional and, at times, rather endearing. Fu Hang, are you sure? Li Weiyang finally snapped back to reality, her unshed tears halting as she looked at him with utmost seriousness. In her perception, Fu Hang was a somewhat wealthy second-generation heir, lacking vision, experience, ambition, and decisiveness. But this encounter had shown her that Fu Hang was actually incredibly talented, a veritable business prodigy. Yet just now, Fu Hang had practically gifted her 25% of the shares. Never mind what that 25% would be worth in 3 years. Right now, it was a solid $30 million. An offer of $30 million for 25% equity. If news got out and this business plan was revealed, people would be lining up, scrambling to invest. And he just gave it to her like that? Then he added another $50 million? What kind of family was he from? If my brother spent $80 million chasing a girl, my dad would personally cut out his kidneys and pickle them in wine. I don't know the detailed procedures either. I'll get back to you. No need. Let him discuss it with you. Fu Hang waved his hand, gesturing to lawyer Zhang, who had just hurried into the coffee shop. Boss. Barrister Zhang, Li Weiyang's lawyer, Lu He, quickly stood up. Lu He, long time no see. This is my boss. Lawyer Zhang nodded politely, completely ignoring Li Weiyang beside Fu Hang. He didn't even spare her a glance from the corner of his eye. He figured any woman seen with the boss wouldn't be a stranger for long. Deftly opening the laptop he'd brought, lawyer Zhang clicked open a document. This is the equity agreement personally drafted by my boss. Would you two please take a look and see if there are any issues? Lawyer Zhang stiffly turned the screen towards them, his gaze calm. Their expressions were odd, but they didn't suspect anything amiss. They both leaned in to look, only to find, to their astonishment, that it was indeed an equity transfer agreement. Crucially, all the potential follow-up issues that had worried lawyer Lu were meticulously addressed. Li Weiyang couldn't quite grasp the finer details and operational clauses, but lawyer Lu was a professional, wasn't he? It could be done like this. It could actually be done like this. He felt his professional understanding had just been completely overhauled. Truly, the renowned, esteemed lawyer Zhang. This move, inimitable, truly inimitable. However, he was a little puzzled by esteemed lawyer Zhang's claim. Personally drafted by my boss. How could a veteran like esteemed lawyer Zhang make such a basic mistake? Was he too eager to claim credit and misspoke? This is a legal document. You're saying the boss drafted it? If problems arise later, does that mean the boss is supposed to take the fall? You prepared this agreement? Li Weiyang, however, seized on what she felt was more important. How long has it been since we finished talking? You already have the agreement ready? And the equity share is clearly stated as 50%. You really are a terrible actor. This means you planned to give me 50% of the shares all along, didn't you? That's why you deliberately left such an important proposal lying around. Just so I would see it? And you pretended to be reluctant just now? Was that just to hide your underlying kindness? You started preparing this secretly after you found out about my divorce, didn't you? Tears finally welled up in Li Weiyang's eyes, streaming down like pearls from her bright gaze. Her thoughts drifted to Wang Haitao. Before their marriage, they hadn't even discussed the bride price before moving on to a prenuptial agreement. No premarital checkup, just straight to proof of assets and notarization of prenuptial property. And during the divorce, every single bracelet, every bag had to be itemized in the divorce settlement. Then she looked at Fu Hang. Fu Hang's eyes shifted to lawyer Zhang, his gaze conveying a clear message. I'm giving you a chance to rephrase that. My apologies, a slip of the tongue. This is the agreement prepared by our side. Please review it, both of you. Lawyer Zhang received the signal, but he was genuinely bewildered. He had no idea what was going on. He'd suddenly received the equity transfer agreement from his boss, hadn't even had a chance to look at it closely, when he got a text message from the boss telling him to immediately bring the agreement to this cafe. Good thing he'd been going to the office to watch palace dramas in his free time these past few days, or he really wouldn't have made it. But it had been a rush. He hadn't even had time to print the agreement, just grabbed the laptop and came. Li Weiyang turned her head away, fiercely wiping her tears with her sleeve. Why are you doing this? I'm a divorced woman now. But then, a voice echoed in her mind. In the cafe where they first met, in the cafe where they met again on that gentle, sun-drenched afternoon, in that elegant, warm booth. It was still the man before her, smiling at her, his tone gentle and sincere. "I'm still a man who's never been married." So casually stated, yet so sincere, as if he were mentioning something trivial. She never imagined such firm resolve could be hidden in that nonchalant tone. Li Weiyang's freshly dried eyes welled up once more. She stared directly at Fu Heng, her pupils slowly dilating, her gaze becoming so intense and mesmerizing it seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly light, as if her very spirit was being distilled into a potent allure. Fu Heng's heart skipped a beat. He felt Li Weiyang's look was dangerously seductive, almost an open invitation, but he had no proof. "Congratulations, host, on completing the conquest mission. Current target, Li Weiyang. Affection level, 90.03%. Reward settlement processing. Rewards will be distributed within 5 business days. Please check for them." Fu Heng smiled, a very calm smile. "You two can discuss the rest. Lawyer Zhang has my full authority to represent me." Fu Heng clapped Lawyer Zhang firmly on the shoulder and stood up. He didn't look at Li Weiyang again. He didn't dare meet her gaze. In that fleeting moment, within those eyes filled with tenderness, he had seen another pair of eyes, innocent and pure. There wasn't a trace of joy from completing the mission. Instead, his heart felt heavy and empty. The hesitation and turmoil weighing on him grew even more profound. He didn't need to worry about the remaining details. Since Lawyer Zhang had appeared so quickly, the system must have already made the necessary arrangements. That damn system's efficiency truly was impeccable. System detection. Current target Li Weiyang meets Phase 2 conquest requirements. Mission objective. Achieve 100% affection level. Mission rewards. 1. Sum total of all income earned during the conquest period for this target. 2. Full reimbursement of all expenses incurred during the conquest period, including public funds expended. Fu Heng, who had just stepped out of the cafe, stopped dead in his tracks. The afternoon sun suddenly felt particularly scorching. There's a Phase 2? Total income plus total expenses, including public funds? Fu Heng's mind reeled. So, as long as Li Weiyang's affection level reaches 100%, I can get my full salary and bonus all over again. But that's not the main point. The main point is full reimbursement of all expenses, including public funds? Not even counting the money I spent on Li Weiyang before. Just now, I dropped 50 million. No. This reward only settles after her affection reaches 100%, which means I can keep spending money on Li Weiyang, and it's the system's money, and then I get it all back in one lump sum? Fu Heng was suddenly dumbstruck. So this is how you play this game? This is the real way to play it? What the hell was I doing for the past 3 years? Couldn't you have given me some career guidance or pre-employment training before I started? You really don't have an instruction manual? I fucking missed out on hundreds of millions. And Shen Qingluan, if her affection level reaches 100% in 3 years. For this project alone, she could net me $1 billion back? What the hell have I been simping for all this time? All that painstaking effort to control affection levels. What was the point? With this kind of reward, who needs a basic salary? I should just go all out. No, wait, I still need to play it smart. Can't have her affection max out before I've spent enough money. That would be a total loss, and I'd regret it forever. Fu Heng felt he needed to calm down and properly formulate a 3-year development plan, define clear strategic objectives, establish scientific, rational, and effective actionable policies, and redefine his professional positioning and career path. Head held high, he strode forward, his figure appearing exceptionally upright in the sunlight. He felt as if the metaphorical red scarf on his chest was shining even more brightly. Behind him, inside the cafe, a tearful Li Weiyang could no longer hear the two lawyers talking. Her gaze was fixed on that radiant figure retreating into the distance. Why are you treating me like this? I don't deserve it. This past week at Yuan Trading had been a whirlwind of change, a truly tumultuous period. Wu Weiman, the former head of the project department, had resigned. Rumor had it he'd been poached by another company. For now, Deputy Head Li Tianming was overseeing the department, pending a new appointment. Meanwhile, HR Director Shen Qingluan's proposals for several job competitions were proceeding smoothly, and a quiet reshuffling of mid- and lower-level management was underway. It was a time of both apprehension and high spirits. Of course, none of this had much to do with Project Team 2. The schemes and strategies of the West Palace faction seemed to have no effect whatsoever on Project Team 2, the East Palace's direct line. The entire Project Team 2 was buzzing with activity, The down jacket project was progressing exceptionally smoothly. The team leader had already flown overseas to connect with their export sales network. With the weather turning cooler, Yuanbo Trading had to ensure the goods were on ocean freighters before winter set in. This was their comeback battle, a fight to establish their dominance within Yuanbo. They needed this victory to prove themselves and to show that Assistant Qin, who had supported them at all costs, hadn't been acting recklessly. During this time, Su Changhe, Yuanbo Trading's executive vice president, VP Su, had been conspicuously low-key. Apart from attending essential meetings, he made no moves. Even in those meetings, he'd abandoned his previous assertive style of taking charge of everything, opting instead to listen quietly without offering opinions or decisions. Anyone with eyes could see that Su Changhe had become even more passive since Wu Weiman's departure. The man who was, on paper, Yuanbo Trading's top leader had become the most disengaged person in the company. However, someone whose status was the polar opposite of Su Changhe's was brimming with fighting spirit, practically radiating energy every day. Lu Junkai, the intern. This fellow, whom his colleagues generally regarded as a bit of a dope, had shown such a burst of enthusiasm these past few days that it was noticeable even within the hyperactive project team too. Why? He'd been made a permanent employee ahead of schedule. In less than half a month, he'd actually received an official job offer. He'd become a permanent employee before he had even officially graduated, a glorious full-fledged member of Yuanbo Trading's project team too. The kind with a full benefits package, overtime pay, and even taxi fares home reimbursed by the company. Lu Junkai knew it in his heart. He and his junior, Yuchu, had a tacit understanding. Though he hadn't run into junior Yuchu since that one day, being in the same office building, breathing the same air, he could feel her presence everywhere. She was always watching him, just as he was always thinking of her. They were in different positions on different floors, fighting together for their future. His junior had already done more than enough for him. Next, it was time for her senior to carry the world for her. When your senior stands before you, shielding you from the storms, clearing every obstacle in your path, you will understand that all your efforts were worthwhile. With sun and moon in my grasp, I plucked the stars from the sky. In all the world, there is only I. Junior, wait for me. Lu Junkai looked up, his gaze intense, as if it could penetrate the ceiling, the concrete walls, passing through the 26th and 27th floors, straight to the 28th. His face was radiant with aspiration. Li Tianming, who happened to be walking by, felt the corner of his mouth twitch and couldn't help but look away. Su Yijie, the leader of Team 2, had been right not to act rashly. Who would have thought that Su Yijie, by playing it safe, wouldn't be dealing with a transfer notice from HR for a problematic intern, but instead this announcement of permanent employment? Is this really the work of some powerful eunuch? Is Consort Shu truly this bold? If you want to fool around, wouldn't it be better to keep your paramour outside the company? Why insist on bringing them in? A knot of worry tightened in Li Tianming's chest. This was a hard-won opportunity for him, and he prayed it wouldn't be jeopardized by this mess. If it was, there'd be no recourse. But Li Tianming didn't know that Lu Junkai's permanent employment hadn't been the decree of Consort Shu. It was, in fact, a gambit by Consort Rome. When Shen Qingluan had unexpectedly discovered Lu Junkai's existence, she'd been surprised, but also secretly delighted. Isn't a singing streamer enough for you? Now, there's a student council vice president too? Do you really, so brazenly, think you have the CEO wrapped around your little finger? Or perhaps you truly don't take me, Shen Qingluan, seriously? Thanks to her deliberate efforts in cultivating rumors and fanning the flames, talk of Shen Qingluan's relationship with the CEO was circulating vividly within the company, complete with supposed eyewitness accounts, physical evidence, and corroborating testimony. In the eyes of outsiders, the drama of the two Empress Dowagers vying for favor was firmly established. This was also why Shen Qingluan's job competition and promotion plans had been implemented so smoothly. Hadn't anyone noticed that the delivery guy from her hometown hadn't been seen around the company in ages? Naturally, as the rumors spread, the fish in Shen Qingluan's pond of admirers had chosen to lie low. Men generally knew their place. The kind of man who could make the CEO's woman willingly support him wouldn't be a mere simp or a backup option. Shen Qingluan, however, had few regrets about this. Compared to her current status and value, those previous fish were no longer worthy of swimming in her waters. Like that delivery guy from her hometown. As for the enigmatic CEO, she still possessed unshakable confidence. A college student? Young? Cute? Smart? She understood men far too well. Cuteness was worthless in the face of sexiness, especially acute, one who was starting to get ahead of herself. Besides, she still held her core competitive advantage. She knew what these wealthy men valued most, and, as it happened, she still possessed it. Yes, she was still a virgin. Even though she navigated a world teeming with admirers, like a butterfly flitting among flowers, she had remained untouched. This was the bedrock of her audacity in having expectations of a CEO. Who could refuse a mature, charming, versatile, and devastatingly sexy older sister type who was also a virgin? Anything you can do, I can do. Anything you can't, I can do too. And I'm still in my original packaging. As for career support, could she possibly offer less than that college student? Never mind that the down jacket project her rival championed was still an unknown quantity. Just based on the girl's shameless suppression of Su Changhe, she couldn't possibly last long in the company, even with the CEO backing her. She knew Su Changhe too well. That old fox wouldn't go down without a fight. And soon, little girl, you'll find out that managing a company isn't as simple as pushing through one or two big projects. As for herself, the company's entire mid to lower echelons had been almost completely refreshed. Those old-timers who coasted on seniority but did no real work had nearly all been cleared out by her. And the newly promoted individuals were all her hand-picked people. These people were the true foundation and pillars of the company. She believed the CEO, operating from behind the scenes, had already noticed this. Shen Qingluan sat in her office, coldly watching the building opposite through her blinds. Standing on this new platform, with this new vantage point, she felt for the first time what it truly meant to be a master strategist, pulling the strings. This sense of satisfaction was something those simps could never provide. Elegantly, she picked up the pink cartoon cat coffee mug and took a relaxed sip, her eyes slightly distant. Every time she brewed coffee for herself, she still habitually used this mug, even though she'd bought a limited edition SK Crystal Cup just a few days ago. Has he been discharged from the hospital yet? Or, has he already heard? Did Yuchu tell him? Heh, still just a naive little girl after all. Boss, the negotiations are done. If the contract looks good to you, should I bring it over for you to sign? It was nearly dinner time when Fu Hang received a call from lawyer Zhang. You handle it, Fu Hang replied casually. Oh, and draft another agreement. I want to transfer all profits from Ganlu Milk Tea for the next 3 years to Shen Qingluan. Do you mean dividend profits? Zhang's heart skipped a beat. He knew it. He just knew something like this would happen. During the recent negotiations, he'd finally taken a good look at the equity transfer agreement. At first, he didn't think much of it. Just a milk tea shop. How much could it be worth? Then he saw the business plan. Zhang was stunned. Even though he wasn't a finance guy, he'd been a business lawyer long enough to recognize genius when he saw it. Yong was right. This wildly imaginative marketing strategy was on another level. A projected market value of $2 billion in 3 years wasn't just some empty boast. And now his boss was giving away the whole thing? Zhang couldn't help but glance secretly at this woman named Yong. First came Consort Rong, then Consort Shu, and now here came Consort Da. The dynamics of the Eastern Palace were growing increasingly mysterious. And judging by the situation, this newly inducted consort seemed to be the favorite. Her welcome gift being a project worth $2 billion, not to mention an additional $50 million in follow-up investment. It's the full profit, Fu Hang said calmly. Got it. I'll bring everything over together. Zhang took a deep breath, sounding as professional as ever, though his mind was filled with regret for Qin, the assistant. Over the past few days of working closely together, he'd come to like the vibrant, fast-paced energy of this college sophomore. For someone still in their second year, she was exceptionally talented, definitely executive material with time. But the business world was ruthless. And man, his boss was really willing to spend big on women. In that moment, Zhang's mind, almost involuntarily, flashed to his own daughter, still just a high school sophomore. Smack! He slapped himself hard across the face, his expression twisted as he shook out his stinging hand. Damn it. What the hell was he thinking? Yanan had been discharged from the hospital. The bullet had passed cleanly through her abdomen, miraculously avoiding all vital organs. Even the surgeon said she must have had heaven's protection. But she didn't feel lucky. She'd been suspended. Word was, even her high-ranking father had taken a heavy internal disciplinary hit. Only now did she truly understand what her father had meant when he'd warned her. Uncle Duan's identity is special. Do not mention him to outsiders. She felt wronged, deeply so. The year she graduated, her father said he wanted to take her on a trip. She thought he was just being sentimental, wanted to celebrate her graduation and reconnect after years of absence. She assumed it was just a father-daughter trip to show his affection. But along the road trip, they ended up at a remote mountain farm where they met a limping melon farmer. Her father acted totally normal, just a rest stop to grab a watermelon. Sitting by the field, he chatted with the old man like any retired official would, casually bragging about how his daughter had graduated top of her class and was about to become a police officer. The old farmer didn't say much, just smiled warmly from time to time. When they left, her father paid 17.5 yuan for 2 melons. On the way back, he finally opened up and told her that melon farmer was an old comrade who had once saved his life. Then, weeks later, she saw the man again at the hospital. That was when she learned from a colleague that he was the grandfather of a child who had been abducted. Naturally, she went to say hello. That one greeting got her suspended. It wasn't until she signed the non-disclosure agreement that she understood who that limping man really was. She felt wronged, but also guilty. She knew it was her own fault. She never blamed her father. She packed her bags and left on her own, planning to travel to the mountains, to the sea, to heal the trauma of the gunshot wound, and to forget the man who had started haunting her dreams. Damn it. Why was she dreaming about that man so often lately? Yes, she had to admit, he was insanely good-looking. Whether leaping up buildings or jumping from the 3rd floor without hesitation. Whether playing the fool in a clothing store or growling, "Give me a reason not to kill you." Damn it. He had broken the suspect's hands, crushed his feet, right in front of her. Didn't he know she was a cop? But the image burned into her mind the most was when he carried a flaming car on one shoulder. That was a man. That was a hero. That was what it meant to be unyielding, fearless. For someone raised in a police compound, trained in a police academy, that moment defined what courage really was. But that man had a girlfriend, a real warrior, even braver than she was. Ying had seen the surveillance footage, the girl charging into danger, the explosion wave knocking her over. She sent them her blessings. Only a woman like that could be worthy of him. With her backpack on, Ying embarked on her own journey of exile. After all, youth isn't something you can put a price on, right? Meanwhile, deep in the Golden Triangle, the man Ying couldn't forget, the limping uncle, was staring in stunned silence at the dossier in front of him. A butcher thought to be long dead had resurfaced. Outsiders assumed he had faked his death to escape the underworld, laying low until his daughter and son-in-law were dragged back into the chaos. Now, the infamous crippled bloodhand had returned to reclaim power, seizing control of the Tri-Foot gang in a storm of bloodshed. But only Duan Chongfeng knew the truth. Revenge wasn't the real reason he came back. The country needed someone in this place. That was why he led a team of fearless, well-trained warriors, agents of death, some called them. The Golden Triangle, as the world knew it, was chaos incarnate. Lawless, filthy, steeped in crime. But what the world didn't know was that it was also the largest black market on the planet. Here, anything could be bought. Anything could be sold. In the old days, when the West had China completely locked out, this was the place where critical resources had been quietly acquired. The surrounding countries understood the unspoken rules. They all had stakes in this no-man's land. And Duan Chongfeng, by some strange twist of fate, he had spent 20 years here. Once just a nameless backpacker, now the dreaded third-in-command of the Lotus Society, crippled bloodhand, Duan Chongfeng. But he wasn't reminiscing about the past. He'd always known what kind of life he had signed up for. What shook him now was the intelligence report his men had just delivered about the young man who had saved his only remaining family. Twice, the blood-handed butcher, a name that struck fear into the hearts of everyone in the Jianghu, now found his face pale and his limbs trembling, all because of a few thin sheets of A4 paper. The information wasn't complete. In fact, he hadn't managed to uncover most of Fu Hang's background. Compared to Yanan's uncle, his men were clearly a tier weaker. Still, he had managed to find information like Yuanbo trading and Yinshu No. 1. But what truly made him lose his composure was the section on Fu Hang's family relations. Fu Wanqing? He was Wanqing's son? Fu Wanqing had a son? When was he born? With whom? How? Natural birth or C-section? 27 years old. He calculated the time. Wanqing had been pregnant, and she'd actually given birth to the child. Thinking of her unannounced departure back then, nearly 30 years ago, the butcher, who hadn't shed a single tear even when his own daughter was murdered, felt his eyes redden. After that parting, Duan Chongfeng, as the world knew him, had ceased to exist. Or rather, from that day on, he had stopped living like a human being. But he'd never imagined she would have born a son conceived back when he was still human. Sitting in his spacious, luxurious office, Duan Chongfeng read the few lines on the document over and over. He remained in that position, motionless, until nightfall. Only when a subordinate came to remind him that he could have dinner did he wearily wave the man away and lock the office doors and windows. Then, he turned on a signal detector, meticulously checking if the communication network was secure. After that, he opened a sealed safe and took out an encrypted satellite phone. Something wrong. The call connected quickly, the voice on the other end tinged with confusion. Under normal circumstances, this phone was used once a month, and it clearly wasn't time yet. Personal matter. Duan Chongfeng's tone was flat. Silence on the other end. Help me investigate someone. I want all his information, Duan Chongfeng continued. You know I can't use my resources for your personal affairs, came the equally calm reply after a long silence. The person I want to investigate is Wanqing's son. Silence again from the other end. You knew she had a son? Duan Chongfeng inhaled deeply and exhaled slowly. The person on the other end remained silent. Then did you know her son is now worth hundreds of millions? Duan Chongfeng's tone suddenly turned cold. After he saved Mimin twice, I looked into it. Lao Ying's daughter asked Lao Zhou to investigate. Lao Zhou concluded that it was left to him by his mother. The voice on the phone finally broke the silence. I had Wanqing's husband investigated before. He's just a merchant ship captain with a bit of money, but definitely not enough to give his son hundreds of millions. Besides, that man has his own son. Silence again from the other end, but his breathing betrayed hesitation. I'll look into this matter. A low voice came after a long pause. If you find anything, inform me immediately. Don't report it up, Duan Chongfeng said after a moment, a hint of pleading in his voice. I work in intelligence. The voice on the phone was exceptionally cold. You owe me your life. Duan Chongfeng's voice suddenly became agitated. You can take my life any time, but as for reporting it, I need to see the results first. The call disconnected. Duan Chongfeng stared blankly, holding the satellite phone. He had actually anticipated this outcome. He knew the person on the other end too well. But seeing Fu Hang's information and considering his own suspicions, he had no choice. If Fu Hang was indeed infiltrated by external forces or a pawn in some power's domestic scheme, then even if he was Wanqing's son, Duan Chongfeng absolutely could not stand idly by. And to confirm this, he had to use the contact on the other end of the line, that spy master in charge of overseas intelligence. He just hoped things weren't too bad, that there would be some room for maneuver. Fu Hang, his buzz cut now growing back, was unaware of how many people had begun investigating his mysterious background. He was currently walking into his new company, Ganlu Milk Tea, with a look of fresh curiosity. Li Weiyang, armed with 80 million in startup capital, was a whirlwind of efficiency, and her connections as a young lady of status truly showed their worth. In just 3 days, everything from company registration to office location selection, renovation, and staff hiring was taken care of. She chose an office floor beneath her family's company building. This might have been her mischievous streak. She really wanted that petty sister-in-law of hers to see that her little sister-in-law wasn't interested in the family's paltry offerings. She had her own career. From now on, when you see me, please call me CEO Li. Of course, the more practical reasons for choosing this office location were when it happened to be vacant. 2. The landlord was an Uncle Wong she had known since childhood, and the price was fair. 3. It was fully equipped, ready for immediate occupancy. As for personnel, after she showed her father the equity agreement and company valuation, he hadn't even asked to see the business plan. With a wave of his hand, he directly dispatched a complete team from his company. Operations, planning, finance, legal, everything was covered. The understanding was that once her company was on solid footing, she would gradually hire new people to replace them, allowing the dispatch team to return to their original company. And just like that, as if witnessing a miracle, Fu Hang found himself sitting in the president's office reserved for him. Gotta say, it felt pretty damn good. Are you sure you don't want to meet the company's staff? Li Weiyang sat opposite him, her face full of anticipation. Behold, the empire I've built for you. No, you know me, I don't like being in the spotlight. You're in charge here from now on. Fu Hang hastily refused. Are you kidding? He'd worn a hat, sunglasses, and a mask when he came, precisely because he was afraid of being recognized. In this line of work, being a simp, you really couldn't afford to be high profile. Especially now that he knew there was a Phase 2 objective, he had to be even more careful. What if he finally met a client, and at first sight they'd go, "Oh, the president? I like you so much." Then the stats would max out immediately, and he'd get a cashback of 8 yuan? Where'd he go to cry then? President, schmesident. Enjoying this office on the sly for a bit was fine, but couldn't interfere with his spending and getting cashback. No matter how much a company could earn, how much cashback could one Li Weiyang give him? Li Weiyang pouted, her eyes misting over. Don't you ever think about yourself? To ensure I have absolute authority in the company. You're not even willing to show your face? This is your company, your project. You insisted I come over. Is there something specific? Fu Heng couldn't stand her gaze and quickly asked. It's the business plan. There are a few parts one can't figure out. Li Weiyang bit her lip, her voice barely audible. Someone had practically handed it to me on a silver platter, and I still couldn't manage. I needed them to basically spoon-feed me. These past few days, she had been full of ambition, but when everything was ready and she was about to go all out, she found she couldn't even take the first step. The crucial details involved were only outlined as proposals in the plan, lacking the core content. So, she had no choice but to bite the bullet and call Fu Heng to the company. Fu Heng's expression turned a bit ugly, thankfully hidden by his mask. Can't figure out the business plan? You want me to do it? I don't even understand that plan, okay? By the way, did you translate it? Maybe give me a Chinese version to look at first. You? Tell me, which parts don't you understand? Fu Heng braced himself, wondering what excuse he could use to slip away later. Then let's go to the conference room. They're all there. Fu Heng's mouth twitched. Didn't we agree I wouldn't meet anyone? Do you know something? You're deliberately trying to tie me to you, aren't you? I treated you like my first love, and yet you torment me again and again. So inconsiderate of the bigger picture. Don't you know how to be more charitable to the world? Besides you, there are plenty of other young ladies with tragic stories waiting for me to save them. Just a few core project members. Li Weiyang detected Fu Heng's hesitation, and a wave of warmth washed over her. There are many of us, so here is fine. It's spacious enough. Fu Heng pursed his lips, already mulling over his words. Li Weiyang, her heart softening, fought the urge to throw herself into his arms. He doesn't even want to go to the conference room? Is he that determined to protect me? To be honest, she knew exactly what people in the company were saying about her behind her back. A newly divorced woman who suddenly landed a huge project, armed with a complete proposal. As she herself had said, even a pig could make it fly with this project. Fu Heng had clearly anticipated this, which was why he was going to such lengths to minimize his influence in the company and downplay his own presence. This man, so absurd, so pitiable, yet so admirable. To think I actually missed my chance with him once. Following Li Weiyang's call, a few people trickled in. Fu Heng, watching them enter, felt his eyes widen behind his sunglasses. Xia Xiaofeng? Lele? These are your core personnel? Layla was relatively composed. He'd been summoned without knowing the full details, only that Li Weiyang, who he knew was important to their mysterious boss, had called him, so he came. But Xia Xiaofeng was genuinely thrilled. Just half a month ago, he was a waiter at a struggling milk tea shop, and now, only a few days later, he'd suddenly been appointed the marketing manager of a milk tea company with a registered capital of 80 million. Just who on earth is my boss? All right, since everyone's here, let's begin. First, Manager Xia, please report on Ganlu Milk Tea's current business philosophy and the aspects we need to replicate and continue. Li Weiyang waited for everyone to be seated before speaking calmly, her demeanor carrying the air of a powerful female CEO. The office was undeniably luxurious. Even with 7 or 8 people suddenly arriving, it didn't feel crowded at all. But the more spacious it felt, the more nervous Xia Xiaofeng became. Our milk tea shop. Oh no, our company's current business philosophy is... Xia Xiaofeng stammered, preparing to recite the script he'd received yesterday. Truth be told, when he first saw the script, he hadn't realized his own methods for pleasing customers. The very things that had apparently impressed the boss had such profound underlying meanings. Wasn't it just giving a cup of lemonade to people in line? Wasn't it just occasionally striking a cool pose for the livestream camera? And that whole striving for excellence and artisan spirit in timed operations, wasn't that just something the boss did to limit supply? You all should know this already, right? Fu Heng raised a hand, interrupting Xia Xiaofeng, and looked calmly at everyone present. Business philosophy? Why are you telling me this? And you're having Xia Xiaofeng present it? What does this kid know about business? Don't tell me you're going to ask me to elaborate or perfect it after he's done. Are you kidding me? If I knew all this myself, would I have gone to all the trouble of coaxing you to come work for me? Xia Xiaofeng had been sneaking glances at this mysterious boss. Seeing Fu Heng raise his hand, he quickly shut his mouth and stood there, trembling with apprehension. Who would have guessed that the delivery guy who used to just hang around the milk tea shop every day was actually a domineering CEO? The others also instantly sat up straighter. As expected of someone who could handle the young mistress, that aura. Speaking of which, what's the background of this new brother-in-law? Why so secretive, even within the company? Could he really be the heir to some conglomerate? We've already discussed this in previous meetings. We just wanted to hear your opinion, Li Weiyang explained, seeing that no one else was speaking. My opinion isn't important. What's important is your opinion, Fu Hang said, his tone flat. I thought. Li Weiyang lowered her head, her cheeks flushed. What I want is what you think. From now on, you only need to go by what you think. Don't worry about what others think. Not even me, Fu Hang interrupted again, his tone domineering. Just don't drag me into this anymore, Fu Hang thought. I'm just a simp. What kind of thoughts could I possibly have? Li Weiyang's pupils contracted. She nearly lost her composure. So domineering. So assertive, but so heartwarming. Is this Fu Hang's true self? The meek and submissive act he'd put on in front of her before. It must have all been an act, just to accommodate her. My opinion isn't important. What's important is your opinion. When had Li Weiyang ever heard such domineering, yet heartwarming words? Not even her father had ever made her feel this way. Her own father was always forbidding this or that. He was domineering, yes, but it was a father's heavy-handed authority, completely disregarding her thoughts. And her brother? She'd beaten him up since they were kids. He wouldn't even dare to squeak in front of her. All right, since CEO Fu has no objections, let's move on to the next item. Li Weiyang sat up straight, the aura of someone from a wealthy, privileged upbringing slowly unfurling. He has already done so much for me. I can't let him down. The first step in our company's expansion plan is to open new branches. Our plan is to first open 3 stores in Hancheng, establish the brand locally here, then expand to neighboring cities, and eventually cover the entire country. For 2 of the new Hancheng branches, we've already confirmed the locations. Besides the main store in Century Plaza, one will be on the first floor of Baida Plaza, in the former SK display space. SK's contract expired, and they moved out the day before yesterday. The agreement with Baida was signed this morning. The other one will be on Shijia. We've reached a preliminary agreement with the landlord. As soon as the current tenant vacates, we can begin renovations. The main topic for discussion today is to confirm the renovation plans. Li Weiyang glanced around the room, her gaze finally resting on Fu Hang. Everyone present actually knew before they arrived what today's meeting was about. They all silently watched the enigmatic boss in the main seat. Fu Hang, under everyone's gaze, was bewildered. You've made such a big show, even getting SK to move out, and you call me here to discuss renovations? A company this big can't hire a renovation team? Besides, do I look like someone who knows anything about renovations? I really wasn't blessed with that skill. Fu Hang half closed his eyes. With his sunglasses and mask hiding his expression, he simply remained silent. According to the original plan, each of our future stores will have an independent theme. The core of this project relies heavily on marketing to drive brand influence. Therefore, we need to confirm the renovation themes for these 2 stores as soon as possible. Seeing Fu Hang completely unresponsive, seemingly determined for her to take the lead, Li Weiyang gritted her teeth and continued. She cautiously peeked at Fu Hang, only to find him with his head down, playing on his phone, looking completely preoccupied. Still acting. Li Weiyang grumbled affectionately in her heart. If outsiders weren't present, she would have pouted. But this time, she had truly misunderstood Fu Hang. He wasn't playing on his phone. He was stunned by a notification that had suddenly popped up. Copyright income credited. Copyright? What copyright? I have copyrights. Before he could figure out where this sudden windfall had come from, he received a message from lawyer Zhang. Boss, the copyright royalties for reserve have been credited. Please check your account. Lawyer Zhang remained as meticulous as ever. Even knowing the boss likely wouldn't care much about this small sum, he dutifully sent the reminder. Although, song royalties? They're worth this much? Entertainers leading the country astray, indeed. A single song can actually sell for so much? Fu Hang feigned deep distress, his eyes gleaming with a strange light behind his sunglasses. To fully expand our reach and build on the flagship store's current popularity, the first step is to decide on a theme, and then all 3 stores will promote it simultaneously. For the flagship store, we'll reuse Lei Li's previous confession video, turn it into an MV, and use it as the store's main feature. Li Weiyang's speech wasn't very logical, even a bit muddled. She had initially thought Fu Hang would lead the meeting, and she would just listen and learn. For such a significant project, as the one who wrote the proposal, she felt she had to say something, right? Who knew Fu Hang would be so determined to let her take the spotlight? For the other 2 stores, we'll also create MVs in a similar fashion to generate initial publicity and create a linked promotional effect. So, For the other two, we'll set their themes based on the style of their respective songs. Li Weiyong managed to get her point across, then turned to shoot Fu Hang a playfully reproachful glance. Very good. Fu Hang nodded in affirmation, having recovered from the shock of the unexpected windfall. Li Weiyong blinked. That's it. What then? The proposal only mentioned that the 3 Hanxing stores would follow a music theme. But apart from the flagship store, which already had a song, what about the other 2? There were no songs for them in the proposal. Should they commission them? Setting aside whether current songwriters on the market could produce suitable songs in such a short time, even if they did, Li Weiyong believed they definitely wouldn't match the quality. She had already asked Lei Lu. Jin Qi was actually written by Fu Hang. He was a musical genius too. He's already so perfect. All this damn talent with nowhere to go. She didn't believe Fu Hang would have written the proposal without having something prepared. Fu Hang felt exasperated again. Why are you looking at me? Weren't you doing fine just now? Continue. Wait a minute. Based on the confession video, shoot an MV? Is this trying to tie Lei Lu and Yuchu together permanently? Fu Hang looked up and saw Lei Lu, who was visibly excited and thrilled off to the side. No wonder this kid is here too. Li Weiyong, your intentions are truly detestable. Have you even asked Yuchu what she thinks? She's the esteemed assistant to the CEO of Yuanboy Trading, an executive assistant with signing authority. How could she make public appearances to endorse a small milk tea shop for you? How are you planning to shoot the flagship store's MV? Fu Hang finally spoke. Li Weiyong didn't say anything, turning instead to a middle-aged man in the office. This was the head of the marketing and promotions department. We plan to recreate Mr. Lei's original confession scene, inviting Mr. Lei and that Miss Chin, using a youthful campus setting with dynamic multi-scene cinematography. Seeing Miss Li look at him, the department head quickly began to answer. However, he had barely uttered a sentence before Fu Hang raised a hand and cut him off. Just as I thought. Fu Hang gritted his teeth in frustration. You might have misunderstood something. Fu Hang rested his chin on his clasped hands, his voice low. Jin Qi's explosion in popularity was indeed due to that confession performance. For some reason, Fu Hang directly labeled the confession a performance. Lei Lu opened his mouth, but his master's aura was too overpowering, so he didn't dare to make sound. Lei Lu did indeed gain popularity because of that performance video, but the customer traffic for the milk tea shop wasn't due to the confession video. It was because of Lei Li's live streams. If you forcibly tie the confession video to the milk tea shop now and make it the store's theme, what do you think the customers who were drawn in by Lei Lu will think? Fu Hang's voice was cold, and the marketing head shivered. He's right. Before, we only thought of leveraging Jin Qi's popularity to set a theme for the flagship store. But wouldn't that tell people the confession was fake? Scripted? Just a ploy to drive traffic to the milk tea shop? What would customers think then? The originally youthful and sincere theme would instantly be tainted with commercialism, falsehood, decay, and sordidness. Wouldn't it backfire? Not only for the milk tea shop, but Lei Li's devoted male university student persona would collapse, right? For a moment, the marketing head felt a chill run down his spine. This grand project was almost ruined by him at the very first step. And Lei Lu, who had initially been disgruntled, was suddenly overcome with shame. Master, he truly considers every aspect for me. He'd already made me famous and is still helping me maintain my persona. Could Master be such a big shot? Does he have his own entertainment company? Several entertainment companies had approached me in the past few days, and I couldn't make up my mind. I'd been planning to ask Master's opinion. But what if Master has his own company? If I signed under him, wouldn't my career skyrocket immediately? For a moment, Lei Lu completely forgot why he was there today, his mind preoccupied with how to join his master's entertainment company. Using Jin Qi as the theme song is fine. Lei Lu got popular because of this song. But the milk tea shop's theme shouldn't be Jin Qi. It can be live streaming. You could even convert the second-floor attic into Lei Li's exclusive live streaming studio. Install a large screen outside. When he's not live streaming, it can play Jin Qi on a loop. When he is, it can directly broadcast his live stream. Fu Hang continued in a cold voice. Still thinking of exploiting Yuchu? Dream on. You kid, just focus on being a streamer. Don't get any other fancy ideas. As soon as he said this, the room fell silent. The marketing head, in particular, had a strange glint gradually appearing in his eyes. Indeed, this must have been his plan from the start. What close call. Thankfully, Miss Li was cautious and insisted on inviting him here today. Lei Li's eyes flickered. Master has even planned out my future path for me? Not only did he give me a divine song, but he's also designed my entire future development plan? Indeed, in the entertainment industry, it's good to have capital backing you to enjoy the shade. I absolutely must cling tightly to Master's thigh. From now on, I'll be an ornament on Master's thigh. Then, what about the other two stores? The marketing head didn't dare to speak recklessly anymore. He silently discarded all his original plans and obediently waited for new instructions. They still need theme songs, right? Fu Hang tilted his head, seeing that everyone had accepted his proposal, and he began to relax. Yes, we need to determine the store themes based on the characteristics of the songs. Li Weiyang's large eyes sparkled with anticipation. Then the copyright fees. Fu Hang's mind started working. We'll pay according to the same standard as Jin Shi. The marketing head, momentarily stunned, quickly replied. Huh? You guys paid that copyright fee? Fu Hang was shocked. So it was my own money? Speaking of which, would the system judge this as money laundering? Master, the copyright fees from the short video platform haven't been settled yet. Once they are, they'll be paid to you all at once, Lei Lu quickly explained upon hearing this. Because Fu Hang had given him the authorization letter, he was the one who signed with the short video platform. But at this moment, he clearly wouldn't let this cause any friction with Fu Hang. Judging by the situation, Master still has more songs up his sleeve? If he doesn't give them to me, where will I go crying? I'm supposed to be Master's #1 artist, okay? Oh, there's more from there. Fu Hang's eyes lit up, his anticipation growing. Meanwhile, everyone present silently noted this detail. This mysterious boss placed extreme importance on copyright awareness. In the future, they'd have to be extra careful with related matters to avoid any displeasure. Did you bring a guitar? Fu Hang raised an eyebrow at Lei Lu. Yes, it's here. Lei Lu excitedly handed over the guitar. Everyone present, except for Xia Xiaofeng and Lei Lu, looked incredulous. The songs you mentioned, don't tell me you wrote them yourself? Li Weiyang's body even began to tremble. Not only can you write songs, but you're also going to sing them yourself? Keep it simple. The way you speak, keep it simple. Skip the progressive emotions. You're not an actor, after all. Fu Hang didn't even tune the guitar. He picked it up and started singing directly. With a heartfelt rendition of the actor, Fu Hang sang. Not because he was deeply moved or channeling any particular emotion, but simply because he'd wanted to sing casually. His skill, however, wouldn't allow for casual. Upon acquiring the song, he had also received a full suite of performance techniques from the system. From vocalization to breath control, pitch accuracy to volume, even emotional delivery, it was all second nature. It was almost as if it were etched into his DNA, much like how he, having never been in a fight, instinctively mastered grandmaster-level combat skills, the warrior's instinct taking over naturally. Just like the first time Fu Hang sang at the milk tea shop, when he raised his hand to press the guitar strings and silence the lingering notes, the conference room fell utterly silent. You could hear a pin drop. A question surfaced in everyone's mind. So, you're wrapped up so tightly because you're an actor? An A-lister? A superstar? A heavenly king? The project leads in the room mentally sifted through celebrities, trying to guess who this person could be. With vocal prowess like that, calling him a vocal king wouldn't be an exaggeration, right? The only other person who knew the extent of Fu Hang's singing ability, Lei Lu, was now beet red, veins bulging on his neck as if he were about to suffocate. He was too excited. Another hit. A mega hit that was bound to explode. Master. No. Godfather. Please, accept this humble servant's worship. For the rest of my life, I'll serve you faithfully through thick and thin until my dying breath, unwavering by your side, loyal to the end. Li Weiyang, however, finally broke. Her excitement and joy lasted only until the second line of Fu Hang's song. Then, she became completely lost. No objections, I just want to see how you'll spin this. Your sorrows too on the surface. Like an actor with no gift, the audience sees it in an instant. I, who should play along with your act, will feign ignorance. Don't force the one who loves you most into an impromptu performance. She understood. She also guessed when Fu Hang had written this song, and for whom. It was when she had cruelly left him to marry Wang Haitao. What must I become to stave off your weariness? So, it turns out, all these things after love lets down its guard. That's the true test. To passively follow others' lies so as not to seem pathetic. How helpless and grief-stricken must he have been back then to write such lyrics? And how laughable that she'd thought Fu Hang's feelings for her were just, so, all an act. That he'd simply disappeared without a word of protest when he found out she was getting married. Who knew he really was acting? Truth is, I was the only one in the audience. Truth is, I saw your reluctance too. The scene's grown used to our push and pull. So what's there to fuss about? Truth is, those who claim to be inseparable rarely are. Truth is, what love fears most is being dragged on. The more dramatic the act, the harder it is to cry. Is it even still worth it? He knew. He knew everything, and he always had. Her being hot and cold with him, her scorn, her disdain, even as she enjoyed his concern and devotion. He understood. He had always understood. He was just playing along with her, not exposing her clumsy performance. I, who should play along with your act, try my best to perform. Like a guest on some talk show, up for anyone's choosing. If you can still see that side of me, the one that loves you, please cut those scenes away. Let me keep my dignity. This indifferent facade is my final performance. It's because I love you that I choose to act this way. This is my way of letting you go. In a quiet conference room, Li Weiyang's sobs echoed. Her tear-filled eyes stared straight at Fu Hang, her trembling lips pressed tightly together, unable to utter a word. Guilt? Self-blame? Overwhelming regret? She felt she had to say something, or she would regret it for the rest of her life. Is this one? Okay. Fu Hang shifted his gaze from Li Weiyang's face. He felt he had to do something before she did something uncontrollable. Okay. It's more than okay. It's incredible. The head of the marketing and promotion department almost roared. He had seen parts of the proposal and, initially, had reservations about this marketing approach. It relied too heavily on the theme song. If the song didn't meet expectations, the subsequent promotional costs would be terrifyingly high. But with the actor, he was completely won over. Is this what a true marketing genius looks like? A theme song for a milk tea shop with this kind of quality? Anyone in marketing had a certain level of professional experience, and he instantly gauged the song's potential audience. Setting aside everything else, just in terms of catchiness, this might even surpass poise. He could confidently predict that once this theme song was released, it would go viral on all short video platforms. In an instant, he even had ideas for the music video. He glanced at his young miss with a pang of guilt, his admiration for her completely unconcealable. Who said the young miss was just a pretty face? Look at her now. Such genuine emotion. Such overflowing feelings. With a performance like that, she'd have this kid utterly captivated. Good, that's good. I think this can be the theme song for the West Street branch. And the theme for the West Street branch can lean toward heartbreak. There are mostly young people there. They'll resonate more with this song, Fu Hang said, turning his head slightly, racking his brains to change the subject. His tone was calm and collected, as businesslike as possible. Yes, absolutely. I'll get someone to start writing the script right away. The marketing head quickly chimed in. Godfather, Master, I will definitely sing this song with all my heart. I believe Yuchu will love it too. Lei Li's face was flushed, his words jumbling in his excitement. Fu Hang's eyes narrowed, and the face beneath his mask instantly fell. What does Yuchu liking it have to do with you? This song isn't suitable for you, Fu Hang stated coldly, the undeniable certainty in his tone making Lei Li's rising smile look incredibly strange. He had been beaming a moment ago, but the smile froze at its brightest, his upturned lips twitching as if a hair, slick with saliva, was stuck to his face, and he was trying to dislodge it by contorting his mouth, failing several times. Fu Hang sneered internally. You want to sing it for Yuchu? Dream on. I'm not short on clients anymore. All I have to do is spend money well for my current clients, and once that cashback comes through, I'll be eating the finest, drinking the priciest. Yacht parties won't be just a dream. Besides, a small-time influencer like you. Are you even worthy of simping for Yuchu? Is Yuchu someone you can simp for? I agree, mister. Lei's vocal style doesn't quite fit this song. The shrewd, experienced marketing head instantly picked up on the change in Fu Hang's tone. This kid doesn't seem to be in his master's good graces. Huh? Or maybe, now that he's got a bit of buzz, he's gotten too big for his britches? Pissed off his financial backer? This needs careful observation. If necessary, I should prepare a backup plan. A classic project like this is rare, but streamers who can sing? They're a dime a dozen. All right, you handle the specifics. You're very capable. Wei Yong and I both feel at ease leaving the project to you. Fu Hang looked contentedly at the balding marketing head, though his eyes surreptitiously flicked towards Li Weiyang. Miss, shouldn't you snap out of it? We're in a meeting. Everyone's watching. Rein it in a little, will you? Hearing Fu Hang mention her name, Li Weiyang reluctantly snapped back to reality. But there wasn't a trace of embarrassment on her face. Instead, it showed an unprecedented resolve. Fu Hang was dumbfounded. What kind of emotional journey are you on now? What earth-shattering decision did you just make in your head? Why do I have this creepy feeling? I think, if Shao Qi sang this song, The effect might be quite good. A woman in the meeting room hesitated slightly, seeing that the young lady hadn't quite tuned back into the meeting, and tactfully tried to bridge the gap. Xiao Qi. Her voice is rather husky and deep, which would indeed suit the song's mood. And considering her local popularity, the store's marketing campaign should do well. The marketing head pondered seriously before giving his opinion. Would she agree? An image of long legs clad in leather boots flashed through Fu Hang's mind. The old foxes in the meeting room all chuckled. With a song like this as backing, forget a minor internet celebrity. Even established stars and artists would be scrambling for it. The marketing head abruptly looked up, his eyes glinting, staring intently at Fu Hang. So that's it. If we can guarantee that every future song is of the quality of Reserved and Actor, we could absolutely use these songs as leverage to negotiate with A-list celebrities. Imagine a different celebrity endorsing each store. The impact. So this was the source of his confidence. The meeting room fell silent once more, and the faces of a few quick-witted individuals immediately flushed with excitement. Only Lei Li's expression was inscrutable, but in a situation like this, it wasn't his place to speak. You guys figure out the specifics. Now listen to this. Fu Hang pursed his lips. He didn't understand the smiles on everyone's faces, only feeling that Li Weiyang before him was becoming increasingly dangerous. This was the profound intuition of a grandmaster. He seemed to see mountains of corpses and rivers of blood, innumerable lives draining away, crying out in anguish. Just because I caught your eye in the crowd, I can never forget your face. Fu Hang picked up his guitar and began to sing again. This time, before Fu Hang could even finish the song, Li Weiyang's sobs were heard again. She threw all decorum to the wind, covering her face with her hands, and her crying eventually grew so loud it interfered with Fu Hang's performance. He barely managed to finish, the chill creeping up his spine growing stronger. He felt as if some great terror was awakening within Li Weiyang, a terror that at any moment might disregard the setting entirely, pounce on him, throw him onto the desk, and ruthlessly ravage, whip, ride, and drain him dry. The meeting had started casually, escalated dramatically, but ended bizarrely. Fu Hang hastily jotted down the two songs, completely ignoring Li Weiyang, who was crying with her head in her hands, and practically fled the scene. The marketing head clutched the precious manuscripts, turning to look at Li Weiyang with a peculiar expression, a hint of regret in his eyes. Young miss, you really overdid it. You should have reined it in a little there. And this song wasn't even a tearjerker. Fu Hang walked briskly out of the new company building, his heart pounding with an inexplicable excitement. 5, 4, 3, 2,